This is a level of sadism and cruelty you rarely see, even in the murder industry.
That poor man suffered terribly.
A cold-blooded attack in broad daylight.
He looked like a candle that had melted.
Everybody was incredulous that something like this could happen in good old Lauderdale by the Sea.
Who douses somebody with sulfuric acid?
A victim adored by almost everyone.
Somebody wanted to send him a very severe message.
He's wanted by the FBI.
Listen, I was in his face, and he just denied it and denied it and denied it.
The truth will be revealed.
Everybody wanted to save his own skin, and they often say it's a race to the courthouse. Whoever gets there first gets the best deal.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. South Florida is a magnet for sun seekers and retirees who want to spend their golden years on golden beaches. And among the most popular is the tiny enclave of Lauderdale by the Sea.
It is a throwback, probably 20, 25 years from the rest of the area of the beach. It has older motels, it's accessible to people who maybe aren't rich, and it has a real sort of homey feel to it.
A lot of people who live in the Northeast or Canada and other places, they come here on vacation, they fall in love with the place, and they move back. And we just tend to get an eclectic collection of people.
In Lauderdale by the Sea, you don't hear about a lot of violent crime. It would be just mainly property crimes, maybe some burglaries.
For the town to have a homicide, it's very, very uncommon.
But on Sunday, July 9th, 2000, Lauderdale by the Sea's peace and tranquility is rocked by a sinister act of violence.
It's a bright, sunny day. It's, you know, the kind of afternoon where people are getting their errands done or they're getting ready for the week ahead. So it was about 3:20 in the afternoon. The victim was in the supermarket parking lot. He's loading groceries into the trunk of his car, and a man runs up to him and then throws a cooler full of liquid all over the victim, and then runs away. The victim is in extreme pain. He is yelling. He is in extreme distress.
He ran back into the grocery store. They tried rinsing him with water.
His body was covered in burns. He looked like a candle that had melted.
911, do you need please fire or medical rescue?
Yes, we need the fire department here.
And what's wrong there?
We have a guy that's here that has acid all over him and he's bleeding.
Acid?
Mm-hmm.
He is flown to a burn center in Miami. He's placed into a medically induced coma, and he never comes to again.
The victim is 63-year-old Rudy Huda, a retired Air Force captain who managed an oceanside resort in the town.
It was just so bizarre to think that somebody in Rudy Huda's life had a grudge against him. He was well-liked. He was known for being friendly to everybody.
He was known as a very conscientious worker. He was always out pottering around, cleaning things up, talking to the guests. He had a little dog that was well known called Shatsy, and they used to walk around the area. People knew them. The people who mourned him must have been devastated knowing how horrible this crime was.
Tasked with solving Rudy's vicious murder is veteran homicide detective Eli Tomasevich.
Mr. Huda was doused with sulfuric acid. The acid, once it starts eating through your body, through your skin, it starts attacking your organs. I worked many homicides, and I've been witness to many autopsies. This was one of the worst. That poor man had probably suffered terribly.
As reporters, we're accustomed to murders that involve guns and knives and beatings and, you know, fights that get out of control, but acid takes it to a whole different level.
Regardless of motive, this is a level of sadism and cruelty that fortunately you rarely see, even in the murder industry, and even in South Florida.
It was such a horrible murder that I was determined we were going to find whoever did this, at least to find out why.
To catch the killer, Detective Tomasevich will need to piece together the final 24 hours of Rudy's life.
Speaking with his wife was just a normal day. He was working around the complex, and I think it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when his wife sent him out to do some shopping. We got surveillance videos from the grocery store, which really didn't help much because most of the videos were from the inside of the store. And that was when Mr. Huda ran into the bathroom and was dousing himself with water. So as far as the suspect themselves, we really didn't have any video on them. I spoke to 2 eyewitnesses. They said that around 3 p.m., Mr. Huda went into the supermarket to do his shopping. When he came out, it was around 3:22. He went to put his groceries into the car, and that's when a white pickup truck came along. A white male came out with a cooler. The witness said it was an igloo cooler, like they use on construction sites. This guy came up and called Mr. Huda's name. So he would turn around and then doused him with the acid. One of the witnesses, she gave us a pretty good description. White male, he was in his 30s, he was 6'2". He had no shirt on, but he had white pants. They were like painter's pants. There was another person with him who was driving the pickup truck, but nobody could describe the driver, you know, because he was in the vehicle. Nobody really got a look at him.
Someone is driven to the scene, called out the victim's name, attacked the victim and only the victim, and then fled the scene. This speaks to this whole thing being very organized, very premeditated. On top of that, not only is it organized and premeditated, the weapon used reflects a level of personal motivation the way few other targeted attacks do.
But what would motivate such a barbaric attack on a man as well-liked as Rudy?
I thought maybe he might have been cheating because it was just the type of a crime that whoever the suspect was wanted to cause pain. It wasn't like, you just want to kill somebody. So we started looking at whether he had a girlfriend, there was a husband someplace that was angry or something like that. But according to Edith Huda, the wife, she had a perfect marriage. They were very happy together. So we went on to other things.
As Detective Tomasevich scours Rudy's background, he discovers that Rudy did have one potentially dangerous vice.
Mrs. Huda told us the only problem that they had was that he would go to the racetrack and he would spend money at the racetrack. And I guess he tried to hide whatever he was spending. So when she told us about that, naturally, we figured maybe he was borrowing money from organized crime. Maybe he owed bookmakers, money from his betting. Because somebody out there wanted to send him a very severe message.
Rudy Huda, a resort manager, was the victim of a fatal acid attack. To find his killer, investigators look into Rudy's gambling habit as a possible lead.
People speculated that perhaps organized crime was involved because the crime was so horrific and so targeted. It was something that was targeted towards a very specific individual. It didn't seem like maybe this was going to be randomly happening to other people.
It's incredibly difficult to find the killer if it's a professional job. So these are weird cases because investigators, I mean, they're clearly looking for the person who's doing the killing, but that person is not connected by motive. They're connected by some form of money because it's a contract killing. And that can be very difficult for investigators to put the pieces together.
We spoke to a few bookmakers in the area that we knew existed. Nobody really knew Mr. Huda. You know, nobody really admitted to seeing him at the racetrack. Friends said, yeah, he'd like to go to the racetrack, but they didn't know of any involvement with any of those organized crime type of people.
Ruling out a link to organized crime, the investigation shifts to the resort Rudy managed and the possibility that someone connected to his job had something to do with his murder.
In the field of victimology, one of the things you always look at is the victim's background. Who they knew, where they've lived, their lifestyle, but most importantly, their occupation. So that is where you're most likely to encounter your adversaries, where you're most likely to build relationships and also make enemies.
Everybody thought he was a really, really nice guy. I mean, he was pretty good to the people that worked at the hotel. Never found anybody that had a harsh word about him.
One of the resort's longtime employees does reveal that there had previously been acts of vandalism on the property.
At one point, latex paint was thrown into the swimming pool at the hotel. Motor engine oil was thrown into the pool, and obviously that caused a great deal of damage, thousands of dollars worth of damage. At another point, someone put some kind of chemical on the bushes that had been planted. So there was a lot of bad feeling and a lot of kind of suspicion about what was going on.
We got copies of the police report, and we also got copies of the video because Mr. Huda gave the videos to the police department at the time. So we actually viewed the videos, and it was people that were coming over the fence and, you know, outsiders. It wasn't people that lived there. But unfortunately, you couldn't identify anybody.
The reports of vandalism are a significant lead that investigators pursue further.
The police met with and talked to people from the Lauderdale by the Sea Board of Commissioners, and they were the first ones who indicated to the police that there was some animosity going on between the apartments across the street and Mr. Huda's resort pertaining to access to the beach and visibility to the beach.
When we found out that there was problems back and forth, we went back to speak with Mrs. Huda. I said, is there anybody that you can think of that would have hard feelings towards your husband? She says, the only thing I can think of is that condominium across the street. She says they used to argue over the fact that Mr. Huda put up shrubs and you couldn't see the ocean or the beach area.
There had traditionally been some kind of agreement between the owners of both sides that they could all have access to each other's properties. But apparently, over time, some bad feeling developed between the properties. And Rudy apparently had gotten upset about some things that were going on, and he had put up some kind of fencing, planted some hedges, and some of the people who lived in the condos across the street felt they were losing access to the beach. They had to walk farther to actually get onto the beach. So there was some bad feeling.
But I mean, who goes out and douses somebody with sulfuric acid? All because of an argument over access to the beach.
To find out who was upset with Rudy's landscaping and maintenance, police reach out to the president of the condominium board across the street, Walter Dendy.
Walter Dendy is this gentleman who at the time was in his 60s, and he ran the condos that were across the street.
You know, whatever he said, they did. He was like the big cheese in that condominium.
He's a respected member of the community. He was involved in civic life in the town. So, you know, he was well known in the area.
He seemed concerned about Mr. Huda, and he seemed like a nice guy. I asked him about the feud going on with Mr. Huda, and he says, no, not really. He says, you know, we've had a couple of crosswords with each other, but nothing serious. And then he tells us the only people that were upset was one or two older people that lived in the building. They were senior citizens.
Investigators were able to confirm that Walter Denny was actually at home at the time of the attack, and so were the seniors. Never mind the fact that crimes of this magnitude, that are this horrifically violent, tend to not be in the wheelhouse of most senior citizens. On top of that, consider the fact that witnesses also described a much younger, taller male as being the one responsible for throwing the acid.
Their initial canvas bringing up little for them to go on, investigators appear to have hit a roadblock in their search for information leading to Rudy's attacker and a motive.
It's frustrating, but listen, I've worked so many murder cases, and we've had a lot of frustrating things go on. And you just keep plugging along. When these murder cases happen, you're out there sometimes for 2 days, 3 days before you ever see your house again. But if you don't keep going, you're not gonna solve a lot of these cases. And we were gonna solve this one way or the other.
Hoping someone out there knows something about Rudy's murder, investigators reach out to the public.
In any investigation like this, where you're the police and you're not completely sure of the story that you have, it's always advantageous to release some information to the public because you're likely to find people who will come forward and fill in some of those gaps.
We started to put out a lot of media coverage as far as trying to get people to call in with any information, and we started getting a lot of tips coming in.
Among the tips they receive, one in particular is promising.
We finally got a tip that said that the person that was involved with this used to hang out at a bicycle shop in Fort Lauderdale. So we went down to the bicycle shop. We spoke to the worker there, John Alexander. He really didn't want to give up much information.
But then Detective Tomasevich makes an important discovery.
The bike shop employee owned a white pickup truck. When detectives realized this, they became very interested because the person who had attacked Mr. Huda had escaped in a white pickup truck. This was a very good lead for the detectives, but there was a problem because the bike shop employee didn't match the description of the person who actually carried out the attack, but he could have been the driver of the truck.
Believing he could be the getaway driver in Rudy's murder, investigators questioned John, the bike shop employee, about his whereabouts the day of the fatal attack.
The investigators were starting to think that this might be the best lead they'd had in the investigation so far. But when the detectives go and talk to this gentleman who worked at the bike shop, he tells them that he was working at the bike store the whole day when Mr. Huda was attacked.
When we looked into it, John had an alibi. It actually panned out. We were convinced that he was not the driver.
But John's still the owner of the white truck that was used that Sunday. And Detective Tomasevich questions him about whether he could have lent it to someone else.
At first, he denied that he lent his truck to anyone. We explained to him that this was a murder case and that if he insisted upon holding back information, he was going to be charged as an accessory because his truck was the truck that was used to commit this crime.
John finally admits to lending his truck to a friend in early July, the day Rudy was killed.
John was friends with Luke Leakey. John said he was a massage therapist, and he had a card from Luke Leakey that had his massage therapist license on it. Then he gave us some information about a girlfriend that he had. He gave us the name of her condo where she lived. So we went to speak with her.
But when investigators arrive at the home of Luke Leakey's girlfriend, Effie, they make a surprising discovery.
The detectives thought it was a little odd because she was considerably older than the suspect that they were looking at. Seemed like a little bit of an unusual relationship.
In speaking to this lady, the detectives learned that she was a vulnerable person, and he took advantage of that to pay her attention and to ingratiate himself into her life and into her home.
Effie tells us, he's just a nice guy. He takes care of me. He helps me with driving her places and doing things for her.
Effie told the cops that he had gone off. She wasn't really quite sure where he was. He had disappeared pretty recently. And the detectives certainly seemed to think it was a red flag.
When I spoke to her, the last time she had seen him was probably like a week or 2 weeks before. But she was also holding back on information. She was making it, oh, he's just a friend, I don't know too much about him. And then we started realizing there was more involved with her than she was admitting.
Detective Tomasevich puts Effie on the back burner for now to take a different tack, following up on Luke Leakey through his business card.
We checked with the state of Florida. The license number on that card was fictitious. They had no record of anybody being licensed with that number. So all we knew was that he's a liar.
This Luke Leakey was sort of a shadowy character that sort of existed nowhere and everywhere in Lauderdale by the Sea.
Then we started looking into his background with his name.
Detective Tomasevich finds an address for Luke Leakey in Orlando, Florida, and his first real suspect seems to be within grasp.
They tracked this guy down to Orlando, thinking that this was the person they were looking for, but when they knock on the guy's door, he tells them, I've been a victim of identity theft, and this guy has been using my name. I've lost money over this. I've just been put through a whole nightmare.
That poor guy had all kinds of problems financially. He had problems with his mortgage. He had problems with his house because the other Luke Leakey was making all kinds of loans and credit cards and everything else.
The guy was telling them the truth, that he had been victimized.
They were able to get a photograph of this Luke Leakey person, and when they went back to show it to the people who had seen the assailant throw the acid, that was not the person they were able to identify. From that, they were very much able to remove the real Luke Leakey as the possible assailant.
When investigators lean on Effie for more information about her boyfriend, she coughs up a description of a 40-something guy, 5'11", with a lean build.
He wasn't a 35-year-old and 6'2". He didn't fit the description of the person that threw the acid.
When the description of the mystery man doesn't square with Luke Leakey, we have to then question what role did he have. For instance, could he have been the getaway driver?
From Effie, they found out that the person posing as Luke Leakey had done some work for a motel down the street.
Detective Tomasevich meets the owner of the motel, hoping he'll have information leading to the mystery con man claiming to be Luke Leakey.
The manager hired Luke Leakey to take care of the pool and do the maintenance around there, but that's all he knew about him.
As the investigation appears to be hitting another wall, Detective Tomasevich makes a coincidental observation.
The owner's son, Brett, generally resembled the description of what the assailant looked like, and that led the police to believe that Brett was involved somehow, that he was the person who threw the acid.
He fit the description to a T. He was in his 30s, 6'2", same type of, physical build. So we take his photograph and we put it into a photographic lineup. Now we have two witnesses. One said he wasn't sure. He says he thinks that it was him, but didn't give us a definite ID. The girl who saw the incident picks him out as the suspect. So we arrest Brett. We take him in, bring him down to the jail. We interviewed him, I don't know how many hours.
They pressed him really hard. One of the detectives said, listen, I was in his face asking if he was Rudy's assailant. And he just denied it and denied it and denied it.
His only alibi was that he was working at the hotel. But, we couldn't confirm it at the time.
After repeatedly denying any involvement in Rudy's murder, detectives escalate Brett's interrogation.
Very often, the police will say, well, would you take a polygraph test? And if the person will not, that is just something else to give them a suspicion that maybe this person has something to hide. But in this case, Brett affirmatively wanted to take a polygraph.
He says, I didn't do this, I wasn't involved, I'll take a polygraph. And as soon as he said that, we said, okay. When somebody offers to take a polygraph, we go right along with it.
But even under the pressure of a polygraph, Brett continues to stick to his story.
What made this very shocking was that he still just denied it and denied it and denied it, and then he didn't pass.
Detective Tomasevich has zeroed in on Brett Nider, the son of a motel owner, as the prime suspect in Rudy's murder. He matches the description of the man who threw the acid, and he's failed a polygraph.
By this time, we go into the live lineup, and as we're doing the live lineup, I see the witness, the female, she picks a Brett out of the lineup, but she's very tentative. She says, yeah, that's him. And then she walks out of the room. So I follow her, and I said, so the person that you picked, are you sure that he's the person that you saw at this, when this crime was committed? She says, no, I don't think it's him.
Eyewitness testimony is sometimes not very reliable. We know that you need to build a stronger case because people think that they actually do see things that maybe have not occurred or remember details that are in fact not the case. So caution is warranted. But I think this case is just so unfathomable, so incredulous that, sometimes mistakes get made or we're forced to really re-examine our evidence and challenge our own assumptions, or else we can quickly come to conclusions that aren't founded.
Despite the polygraph results, the eyewitness's inability to make a positive in-person ID of Rudy's attacker means investigators have to let Brett go.
As a police officer, as a detective, the last thing I would ever want to do is lock somebody up that doesn't deserve to be arrested. It's a horror. To me, that would be the worst scenario. To have no problem locking up a guilty person, but never want to lock somebody up that didn't do the crime.
There was a lot of pressure on the detectives to solve the case. So there was certainly great public interest in making sure that whoever did this was brought to justice, but nobody wanted a rush to justice. They wanted to be sure that they got the right people and that the right people went to prison for what they had done.
Determined to find justice for Rudy, Detective Tomasevich knows the key to cracking the case lies in finding the man posing as Luke Leakey. Looking for answers, he hauls John, the bike shop employee, in for questioning.
Basically, we had to threaten him that he was going to go to jail because we knew that it was his truck. He admitted that he loaned his truck to Luke Leakey, but he still gave us a very hard time as far as giving us information. So we actually locked him up as an accessory. And that's when he started to realize that he had to come clean with us.
These situations are always like playing poker with somebody, and you've got to give police the leeway to be a little bit forceful, play their hand to see what they're going to get. And in this case, it turned out to be a good hand for them. John was forthcoming with more information.
And then he tells us that he found clothing. He described the painter pants, and he said that it looked like something had eaten through the material, which was the acid. Then he also found the igloo cooler.
But John has thrown away all the physical evidence he found.
I think he realized that he made a mistake, And I think he just wanted to get away from it as far as he could.
John does tell detectives that the man who is presenting himself as Luke Leakey has a car at his girlfriend Effie's place.
We spoke to the security there, and they knew he was not a resident there, but he had his car down in the garage. So security takes us to the car down in the garage, and we have the forensic unit come down, and they lifted prints off of the outside of the car. The prints came back to Emilio Sheriff-Arden.
He has a history of being arrested. He's wanted by the FBI. He was involved in some kind of attempt to break someone out of a jail in the past. So the investigators are very interested when they start to figure out that this guy is linked into all of this somehow.
Investigators are confident that the man posing as Luke Leakey is actually Emilio Sheriff-Arden. Now they just have to find him.
The detectives went back to Effie, and she identified him as the person she knew as Luke Leakey. But she was somewhat reluctant to believe that this person in her life could be a criminal. There was still some element of her trying to protect him.
We sat and explained to her all the information that we had, all the people that he's hurt. She finally realized that this was not a person that she wanted to, defend. And then she finally started telling us all the information that we needed to know. She gave us his cell phone number, and we got a warrant for that number so we could track it. And we tracked that cell phone right across the United States. We knew exactly where Emilio Sheriff-Arden was at certain times. And then it finally stopped in Palm Springs, California. So we got on the phone, called the Palm Springs Police Department, sent them flyers with his, photo and other information. And we said, he's somewhere in your city. And Palm Springs put it on the local news there.
Investigators catch a break when the people Emilio Sheriff-Arden is staying with see the news report.
When these two guys saw it, they said, that's the guy that's staying with us. They picked up the phone and called Palm Springs Police. When Palm Springs Police Department got there, they must have surrounded the place because it was a homicide investigation. Somebody goes to the front door and they put somebody at the back door, just in case that person tries to escape. Emilio ran out the back and he was caught when he was running out of the back door.
With Emilio Sheriff-Arden in custody, Detective Tomasevich interrogates him about Rudy's murder.
He was a little cocky at the beginning, and I said to him, I says, Emilio, you don't have to say a word. You have the right to remain silent. They gave him his Miranda rights. I said, just listen to what I have to tell you.
Investigators have Emilio's cell phone records, which place him making a call in the area of the supermarket at 3:24 p.m., around the time of Rudy's attack.
And I told him all about the information, all about the evidence, and he didn't say a word. He just sat there listening and looking at me. And he said, wow, you guys are good. He says, you did a good job. He says, okay, I'll tell you the truth.
Detective Tomasevich has Emilio Sheriff-Arden in his crosshairs and is hoping to learn the truth about Rudy's murder.
Emilio was trying to save his own skin, and he was in other troubles, so he was looking at possibly being convicted of other crimes. So it seemed like he was trying to get the best deal for himself. And they often say it's a race to the courthouse. Whoever gets there first and volunteers the most information gets the best deal.
Emilio tells Detective Tomasevich he was just the getaway driver and that Rudy's attacker is Emilio's friend, Neil Bross.
Neil was a painter, and he used to wear a white painter's outfit. Just like the guy that was in the parking lot who doused Mr. Huda with sulfuric acid.
Mr. Sheriff-Arden told him that he was asked by somebody to do this, and that he agreed to be the getaway driver, and he enlisted his friend, Neil Bross, to actually throw the acid.
Investigators have two suspects with the means and opportunity, but they're still without a motive for why Neil Bross and Emilio Sheriff-Farden would want to conspire to murder Rudy.
Their motive seemed to be to make money. Neil thought he was going to make $200,000 with a bonus thrown in if he could get the acid into the eyes of the victim. And Emilio thought he was going to make about $20,000 to set up the deal and be the getaway driver.
And then, as it turns out, that's when Emilio Sheriff-Farden named the mastermind of the entire crime.
Emilio said that the mastermind behind this whole barbaric plan was Walter Dendy, the president of the local condo association.
Walter and Rudy had been at loggerheads over Rudy's decision to restrict access to the beach path and to plant a row of hedges that obstructed Walter's condo complex's ocean view.
I was surprised. We did a background check on Walter Dendy when we originally spoke with him. Man's never been in trouble, worked his whole life, retired. It was hard to believe that a man like him would be involved with, an incident like this.
What would push a law-abiding senior citizen who is an upstanding member of the community to orchestrate such a vicious attack in response to a property feud?
Walter's somebody who is sensitive to perceived slights and affronts. He wants to regain the beach access because it makes him look good in the eyes of the people he represents as the condo association. If he can't provide that, it means people at this condo need to walk the same access as the rest of the public. And this is something that, if you're a narcissistic individual, would be really awful and off-putting towards you. But the more he struggles to solve this problem, it's almost like this narcissistic wound continues to fester to the point that he just gets so aggrieved, he's going to resort to a plan to take care of Rudy or send him a message for good.
Emilio tells Detective Tomasevich that Walter Dendy found out he was on the run using a false name and leveraged this information to blackmail Emilio into participating in the feud.
Walter Dendy wanted to cause enough damage where Mr. Huda would lose his job. So this way they wouldn't be arguing over bushes and the lock on the gate and all that. Walter Dendy hired Emilio to throw the oil into the pool. Walter Dendy hired him to kill the bushes after the bushes were put in place. And then he said that Walter Dendy wanted to hire him to send Mr. Huda a very severe message with the acid.
Emilio Sheriff-Farden tells detectives he enlisted Neil Bross to throw the acid and that Walter Dendy promised to pay them both for the attack. But Sheriff-Farden's also a con man, and Detective Tomasevich needs more than hearsay to prove his case.
When the police confront Emilio, he tells them he has proof about his story. He says he and Walter actually went to the industrial supply store together on July 7th and bought the sulfuric acid together.
A woman sold a barrel of sulfuric acid to two gentlemen matching the description of Emilio Sheriff-Farden and Walter Dendy. She was able to give the descriptions, and then she was able to pick them out of photographic lineups. Getting the sulfuric acid was a big deal because that was clear evidence that Mr. Dendy was involved.
With Emilio Sheriff-Farden's cooperation, investigators are able to put together the final 24 hours of Rudy Huda's life.
The day when Mr. Huda was attacked, all three gentlemen, Mr. Dendy, Mr. Sheriff-Farden, and Mr. Bross, got together. They all hung out at the condo, and they kind of staked out Mr. Huda. They watched to see what he was doing. They kind of wanted to get him, apparently, away from the hotel resort. So they spent quite a few hours just hanging out, stalking him.
At 3 p.m., when Rudy went out to the supermarket, Emilio and Neil tailed him in the white truck.
They kept in contact with Mr. Dendy up until the point where they got to the supermarket, and then there was a space in time where there were no phone calls.
Mr. Huda went into the local supermarket to pick up some groceries, and when he came out, Neil Bross runs up to him, yells his name out, and when Rudy turned around, he threw this gallon-sized cooler full of acid all over him.
And that's when Neil Bross got back into the truck and left with Emilio Scherfarden driving the white pickup truck at 324. And as far as we can determine, that's when phone calls were made from Emilio Scherfarden to Walter Dendy saying that the Eagle has landed, which meant that their job was completed.
It doesn't get much more horrible than an acid-throwing attack that ends up with someone being burned.
How does Walter go from wanting access to the beach to being this planned, cold, calculated mastermind of this brutal attack? If you trace back the offense far enough, you'll see that this person was angry, then they were ruminating to the point of just brooding, so it becomes all-consuming. I think there's certain people who are predisposed to angry rumination. And the more you think about that, the more you visualize the revenge you're gonna enact, the more that's likely that something aggressive or violent is gonna occur. And I think that's likely what happened in Walter's case.
On February 26, 2003, Walter Dendy is convicted of second-degree murder. Emilio Scherfarden is also convicted of second-degree murder. Neil Bross is convicted of murder in the third degree.
What has stuck with me probably the most is the evil in Walter Dendy. There was just nothing about him that you would find likable or redeeming. I have seen people who lack the empathy gene, meaning that they really don't care what they do. I have seen people who have acted out of passion, but something so cold and calculated, I don't think I've ever seen it before.
I always thought it was one of my worst cases. I mean, I've had bad cases. This stands out. Everybody got what they deserved, especially Walter Dendy. He was the worst. He was the one that contracted the whole situation. He was the one that caused the whole thing.
I think the thing that really sticks out about this case is just how petty disputes can blow out of proportion, and just how tragic it all is. Rudy suffered terribly. His wife suffered terribly. She didn't get to say goodbye to him. His children were not able to say goodbye. And for the people who know that their loved one died in such horrible and painful circumstances, you hope they get to go on with their lives, but I don't know that anybody ever gets to close these things out.
This wasn't a random event. This was a targeted assassination.
A brutal killing.
There was a large amount of blood.
Numerous bullet wounds to his torso and head.
He was probably dead before he hit the floor.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
I was concerned about her description of the shooter being very cliche-ish, almost like a TV movie.
He's a con man. He goes by different names. So red flags are popping up all over the place.
Risky business deals with shady operators. He inevitably got himself, in plain English, in over his head.
The truth will be revealed.
What this came down to was greed. Every one of them was convinced that these two were somehow involved.
I've been a homicide detective for a long time, and oftentimes you just try to find the lie.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence, that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Spokane, Washington, an idyllic town nestled in the lush green mountains of the Pacific Northwest.
Spokane is a city of approximately 300,000 people. It's surrounded by mountains and farm country, beautiful with a river running right through the middle of town. It is a great place to raise a family and to make a life.
We don't have a lot of crime. We aren't like the big cities where we're going out on homicides every night.
But on a quiet December night, the peace of this town is shattered by gunshots.
911, what's your emergency?
Somebody shot my husband. Oh God, he's going to find me.
At 7:03 p.m., Alberta Carlisle called 911 reporting that someone had just shot her husband, Doug. Alberta, when she called in, it was right after she made it to a closet, locked herself in, and was hiding. And she called immediately. She had her phone with her. So we knew that this had happened within a minute or two of the call.
Officers arrived on scene. Medics came in and immediately began working on him. They pronounced him dead at 7:18 in the evening.
The victim is Doug Carlisle, a 63-year-old businessman, devoted husband, and father of 6.
Douglas, he was a family man. He'd been married to his wife, Alberta, for 42 years. This was the love of her life. She knew everything that he did. They were always together. I got the impression that this had broken her. They had grown children, very religious family. From all outward appearances, a completely normal person. He wasn't a criminal, he wasn't causing trouble.
He had his own excavation business in Washington and had expanded that business to include the oil trucking business and was attempting to get into the oil drilling business.
Within minutes of the 911 call, homicide detectives are on the scene.
It was a very affluent neighborhood, and this was one of the larger houses in the neighborhood. I was surprised when I was told the address of where the homicide had occurred, because typically we might go 20 or 30 years without having a homicide in those type of neighborhoods in Spokane.
Tasked with investigating the murder of Doug Carlisle are veteran homicide detectives Mark Burnbridge and Brian Sesnick.
When I first entered the home, there was Christmas stuff all over. There was actually Christmas music playing over the stereo the entire time I was processing the crime scene. So it was decorated, and they were obviously ready for the holidays. The deceased, Mr. Carlisle, was lying on his back, his arms out to the side. One round had gone in his mouth.
Doug had numerous bullet wounds to his torso and head.
There was a large amount of blood. It was obvious that the wounds had been fatal almost immediately. He was probably dead before he hit the floor.
Detectives begin processing the crime scene, looking for clues.
Initially, there wasn't a lot of evidence. I found 7 shell casings. Douglas Carlisle was shot 7 times. He was hit 7 times. 5 of the bullets exited him, so I found 5 bullets in the house. 2 more were recovered at the autopsy.
A .45 caliber handgun had been fired at Mr. Carlisle. The subject had emptied the handgun. He had almost no chance to survive those wounds for any period of time. This was a directed attack, and they fired it to make sure he was dead.
To track down the killer, detectives must now focus on the last 24 hours of Doug Carlisle's life, beginning with the moment he arrived home at 6:55 p.m.
Alberta told me that she and Doug had gone to church that evening and had just arrived home from church. She removed their hidden key, which she used to enter the house. She put the key back in position, walked through the kitchen to a short hallway which leads to the upstairs. She was just getting to the 2nd floor when she heard voices downstairs. She heard two males talking in the kitchen, and she knew one of them was Doug, and she just assumed that one of them was one of her four sons. And so she came back downstairs to see who was at the house. She came to the bottom of the stairs and stepped to the entryway to the kitchen, and she could see Doug to her left, standing there with his hands in front of him, telling somebody, "You don't have to do this." She looked to her right, and near the kitchen table was what she described as a large male dressed all in black with a black stocking mask on with a hole in it. She could see the subject's eyes and nose and part of their mouth, and that they were holding a large handgun. Alberta said that they also had something on their chest and back, like a backpack or a shoulder holster, and that she turned around and started running. As she was running up the stairs, she heard a lot of gunshots. She didn't know the number, and that she ran upstairs and hid in one of the closets on the second floor. Alberta had her cell phone with her and called 911 from a closet she was hiding in and directed police to their location.
Detectives theorized that Doug's murder could have been a burglary gone wrong.
I examined all the doors, all the windows, took photographs. There was a spare key to the house that Alberta talked about. I found that it was still in the same location it had been. So there was nothing to indicate that anyone had broken into the house at all.
I could find no sign that anything had been stolen or disturbed in the residence.
Douglas Carlisle still had his wallet. He had cash on him, so it wasn't a robbery. I contacted a canine officer, and he showed me the path that his dog had tracked. Basically, it showed that the suspect had fled the back door of the residence, through some shrubs, over a small fence, and through the neighbor's backyard. It was cool out, but not frozen. There was some water in the neighbor's backyard, and you could see footprints in the mud.
A canine unit serves a very valuable purpose at any homicide scene when you have either property or a person that needs to be tracked from that scene. It's sort of the most versatile animal you can imagine. So they have speed and strength, but also the olfactory or the sense of smell that will lead them to items far more effectively and more quickly than a person just looking around.
Just beyond the neighbor's backyard was a field where we located a glove. It was a tan-colored welding glove. Normally that wouldn't be a big deal, but there was some dew on the ground and leaves had fallen, and this appeared to be sitting on top of everything and was dry. So right away we thought this may have been dropped by our suspect as he fled the scene. It was strange enough that there was no way we were going to leave it.
At a minimum, I was hoping to get a DNA sample from the glove that went to the shooter or someone that was at the scene who has been arrested before, so that I can identify them by name. Our canine was able to track the suspect past a school. We were later able to get the video from the external cameras on that school, and we could see a grainy figure running down the street just a minute or so after the shooting and leading off into the darkness toward the hidden trail. This camera was not a low-light camera, and so the footage just shows a grainy image of this individual running by. You can't identify him or tell race in any way. After looking at the getaway route, taking into account the hedges, the hidden gate, and the kind of hidden trail that the shooter took to get away from the scene, I told Detective Sesnick that I believed this was a directed attack, specifically targeting Doug Carlisle, and I was very concerned.
This wasn't a random event. This was a targeted assassination.
Detectives now consider whether this could have been an inside job.
Family members or people you know kill you more often than a random, unknown person. And so I had to eliminate the family first.
When you have a murder, the first person you're going to look at is the spouse. And in this case, we had a spouse who was not only at the murder scene, but claimed to have seen the suspect. But the suspect didn't go after her. So that drew a lot of red flags for me. I was thinking, is this someone who's trying to pull something over my eyes, or is she really the loving wife?
Alberta provided a fairly detailed description of the shooter's clothing, and the mask and some kind of gear that they had on their chest and back. I was concerned about her description of the shooter being very cliche-ish, almost like a TV movie, and it concerned me that it was being made up.
A story that is too detailed is inherently suspicious. Even if she didn't pull the trigger herself, could she have either hired or convinced someone to do her dirty work for her?
In the brutal murder of 63-year-old business and family man Doug Carlisle, suspicion is swirling around his wife, Alberta.
My first interview with Alberta Carlisle occurred at approximately 8:30 in the evening to 9 o'clock in the evening. The shooting had occurred around 6:30.
Alberta Carlisle, she is different. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that when you're talking with her, there's a lot of religion that comes out. She would occasionally break down crying, and she'd want to pray and things like that. She's very emotional, and that comes across like she's faking it.
So Alberta's reaction in her interview to revert to prayer and sort of these soliloquies and speaking to herself and to God is obviously suspicious and piques the curiosity of investigators. This could mean one of two things. This is a stress response where she's seeking some kind of solace through prayer, or it's a convenient tactic of avoidance and deflection.
As a homicide detective, I've interviewed a lot of people who have had loved ones die from a murder. I've seen the whole gamut of emotion from that, from very stoic, almost non-emotion, to hysterical crying. I try not to read a lot into that, but some of the things that Alberta said and some of her actions concerned me greatly. She didn't care about us processing the scene or getting evidence. Saying goodbye to Doug was more important to her than us catching the killer.
Detectives question potential motives that Alberta would have to want her husband dead.
She began talking about their finances and that a lot of what I had seen was just for show. They didn't have $40 in the bank. They didn't have any life insurance. They didn't have medical insurance. I'd had a chance to go through his phone. There wasn't another woman on the side. She didn't have anyone on the side. Basically, every text message and call was, "I love you," back and forth between them. And so once I ruled out that there was a financial incentive for her to be involved, I really believed her when she talked about how in love they were and how things were going between them.
Still grasping for a lead, detectives press Alberta to recall any details of the day of the murder that stand out as unusual.
Alberta started telling me that she thought she had seen a van earlier in the night up in the neighborhood.
One of the neighbors had called 911 a short time before the shooting, talking about a suspicious white van. About 5:45 in the afternoon, she had come home and noticed a white van parked in front of her house. It was in front of her driveway, and she immediately became concerned, thinking maybe someone had broken into her house. So instead of pulling into her home, she had driven around the block and noticed someone sitting in the driver's seat of the van. When this person noticed her watching, they drove off. A short time later, she looked out her window and the van was back, again parked in front of her house. So she called 911 to report a suspicious vehicle.
Was the mysterious white van connected to Doug's murder? Looking for answers, police canvassed the Carlisle's neighborhood.
One of the homes had an external video system, and we actually had videotape footage of this suspicious van about 2 hours prior to the murder, driving through the neighborhood slowly. The van was unique in several ways in that it was an aftermarket extended van, and one of my detectives spent almost 2 weeks trying to identify specifically the make and model of that van. And in the state of Washington, we can run an all vehicles request. And so we requested all the vehicles in Spokane County and surrounding counties that match that van, and we came up with a list of 75.
Though detectives believe they may have images of the getaway vehicle, they're no closer to knowing the identity of the killer.
While I was talking with Alberta, obviously the big question in my mind is who would want your husband dead? And I asked her point blank, who are possible suspects? You've seen the person who shot him, who else could be involved in this? And the only name that she ever mentioned was James Henriksen.
Alberta told me that Doug was very afraid of James, who was one of his business partners, and that he had told her that if something happens to me, James did it.
An investor and project developer in the burgeoning oil sector, Doug Carlisle had partnered with James Henriksen in a venture to extract oil in North Dakota.
James was a businessman in North Dakota. He owned a trucking company hauling water and oil out on the oil leases of North Dakota.
There's a lot of similarities between James and Doug. They both liked people to believe that they were rich. They both drove nice vehicles, had nice houses, liked to show it off, liked to pretend that they had a lot of money. And the fact is, neither of them did. Both were living well beyond their means.
Detectives reach out to the Carlisle children, hoping they can shed more light on the relationship between Doug and James.
Every one of them was convinced that James was somehow involved in this murder, and that it had to do with the fact that their dad and James Henriksen were not getting along, and their business was going south.
Doug's eldest son reveals that the animosity between Doug and James had reached a fevered pitch in the days prior to his murder.
Doug and James Henriksen got into a verbal argument about the finances of the company. James Henriksen was demanding his investment back. It was a significant sum of money, over $400,000 they were arguing about, and Doug Carlisle was refusing to pay him back that money. He was concerned enough for their father's well-being that they gave him a handgun that belonged to them so he could carry it for his safety. It is not uncommon for people that are potentially going to lose large sums of money based on either fraud, theft, or just bad business to resort to murder, either to recover their money or just to get even or pay the person back for costing them their money. In my experience, I've seen people kill people over $50. So hundreds of thousands of dollars is certainly something that someone might kill somebody over.
As the cliche goes, follow the money.
Detectives are zeroing in on a new suspect in the murder of family man Doug Carlisle, his business partner, James Henriksen.
So early on, every family member is saying James Henriksen is involved in this. I just started Googling James Henriksen, and one of the first things that popped up was this ripoff report. He's a con man, he goes by different names. So red flags are popping up all over the place. And so, yeah, with his criminal history and everything that we knew about James at that point, that's when we decided we've got to try and talk to him.
I needed to find out his relationship with Doug Carlisle and to see if anything that the Carlisle family members had told me was potentially true. On the night of Doug's murder, after I had completed interviewing Alberta and her sons, they had provided to me contact information for James Henriksen to include his address and cell phone number. I contacted police radio and arranged for them to ping James Henriksen's cell phone so I could locate where that cell phone was prior to me trying to contact him. After about 20 minutes, I received a phone call from police radio who told me that that phone was being identified as being back in Watford, North Dakota. I contacted James Henriksen at home and spoke to him on the phone. I identified who I was and told him I was calling because Doug Carlisle had been murdered. James Henriksen told me he was aware that Doug had been murdered because he had received texts from several people that he and Doug had in common as friends who were telling him that Doug had been murdered.
He denied having anything to do with the murder.
James Henriksen was guarded in his disclosures of information to me about Doug Carlisle. I was asking him about how his business was doing and He became angry and denied that there were any problems between he and Doug Carlisle, and said it was Doug Carlisle who lied to people and didn't pay his bills. I've been a homicide detective for a long time, and oftentimes you just try to find the lie that helps lead you down the correct path. And in this case, I either had the Carlisle family that was lying or I had James Henriksen that was lying, and now I had to find evidence to bolster which side was telling the truth. While I was speaking with James on the phone, I wasn't comfortable that he was actually in North Dakota. In this day and age with cell phones, you can forward another cell phone to another cell phone or to a hard line at some residence. So he could have been in Spokane talking to me on a phone that was actually pinging off of a cell tower in North Dakota, and I wouldn't know that.
Cell phones are a really interesting investigative tool. The use of tower pings can essentially leave a trail of breadcrumbs confirming where a person has been or has gone. At the same time, a very calculating suspect could put a phone in a car, leave a phone on a subway, or send their phone with somebody else in order to lead investigators into a completely different area. In essence, a phone can be used to fabricate an alibi.
I later completed search warrants to get complete phone information from his phone, because if you get the actual background information, it will show whether that phone was being forwarded or not, or the actual physical location of that phone. And I was able to determine that it was not forwarded and was actually in North Dakota, 1,000 miles away from Doug's murder. That told me that he was not the murderer.
At that point, we didn't have any concrete evidence. We didn't have anything linking him to the scene.
Unable to put James at the crime scene, detectives ask him who might be angry enough to want Doug dead.
He told me that over the years, Doug, in his contracting business, had been sued a lot of times and had done a lot of shady deals, and there might be a lot of people that were mad at him that might be willing to hurt him.
Mr. Carlisle had 31 liens against him. So there were a lot of people that were upset with him and that would have a reason to murder him.
Detectives dig deeper into Doug's business dealings and discover a desperate man hell-bent on success.
Doug borrowed $150,000 from his son Shane. Doug was promising investors 100% return on their money in 90 days or 6 months, depending on who the investor was, which was ridiculous.
Every dime that he had been invested in the business, and they were not bringing any money in. The business was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. There were IOUs outstanding. They'd taken loans from people up to $400,000 and promised repayment. Those had come past due, so people were upset wanting their money back. He was in dire financial straits.
He had contacted a middleman in the Middle East who was reportedly involved in finding investors for oil companies. This individual charged Mr. Carlisle $90,000 for the right to apply for an investment loan. This was pure fraud, and this individual had no intent of conducting any true business with Mr. Carlisle. So Mr. Carlisle lost everybody's money again and didn't further this business.
Risky business deals with shady operators. Doug got himself, in plain English, in over his head.
I was going to have to expand the pool of possible suspects to everybody that was involved in lawsuits against him.
That leaves a very long list of potential suspects with very viable motives. Money is more than just dollars and cents. Money has a high degree of emotional attachment for people. It's tied to everything from self-esteem to status to identity. And when you begin tampering with that, people will, not surprisingly, respond emotionally, including through murder.
In the face of so many suspects with the motive to want Doug Carlisle dead, detectives reach out to the media looking for new leads.
I had put out a request in the media for persons that knew Doug Carlisle or James Henriksen to contact us if they had had business dealings with them. Out of the blue, about a week after Doug's murder, an individual by the name of Robert DeLeo contacted me at the police station and said that he'd had business dealings with both James Henriksen and Doug Carlisle and was willing to speak with me.
Robert DeLeo is a very smooth-talking guy, but he's a gang member. He'd been involved in a murder. He is involved in large quantities of drugs, and he'd been to prisons numerous times. He denied having anything to do with the murder. He denied that James had anything to do with the murder, but he felt that he needed to come in and let us know his relationship.
Suspicious of DeLeo's motive for coming forward, investigators questioned him about his whereabouts when Doug Carlisle was killed.
He told us he was in North Dakota at the time of the murder. We checked phone records, we checked GPS records, and we confirmed he was in North Dakota, which is what his girlfriend told us.
Mr. DeLeo was insistent he knew nothing about the murders, and in fact, he took a polygraph the next day. And Mr. DeLeo passed that polygraph.
Despite DeLeo's alibi and polygraph, something just doesn't sit right with detectives.
I thought it was very odd that Mr. DeLeo came forward just to provide information that he knew Doug Carlisle or James Henriksen.
Psychologically speaking, I think there might be a number of reasons why somebody would want to insert themselves into an investigation. One reason might be, I want to get close to the investigation. I want to control it. I want to know what's going on.
We often see them show up, for instance, in volunteer search parties where a body hasn't been found. And they want to keep abreast of what's going on so that they can stay a step or two ahead.
Also times, people when they have a criminal history are sometimes impulsive. They don't necessarily have the best judgment, and sometimes they make decisions that are ill-advisable. Sometimes they do this because they're arrogant.
After Mr. DeLeo left my interview room, I began working on a search warrant to include his cell phone, who they had been calling and texting, to try to create some kind of a connection between Mr. DeLeo, Mr. Henriksen, and anybody that might be involved in this murder.
Investigators then make a shocking discovery: that James Henriksen shared a similar criminal past with Robert DeLeo.
Robert DeLeo was James Henriksen's right-hand man. They had worked out in the same gym together, and then a couple months later ended up in jail together, ended up being cellmates. While sitting in jail, Henriksen told Robert DeLeo about his business ventures and his dreams of striking it rich in North Dakota, and told him, when you get out of jail, get a hold of me, I got a job for you.
But what was that job? Looking for answers, investigators do a deep dive into James Henriksen's partnership with Doug Carlisle. They discover the business was in desperate need of a bailout from an angel investor.
Doug had developed this dream of being an oil man and owning an oil lease and oil wells without really understanding the full financial impact of what that meant. And he was trying to find partners to buy this oil lease for $2.1 million. Doug did not have that kind of money.
Luckily, Doug and James knew a contractor named Larry Tormazov with connections to big money.
Mr. Tormazov was personal friends with a gentleman in Moses Lake who was involved in the contracting business and who was very wealthy. Mr. Tormazov was then contacted by James Henriksen, where they discussed the possibility of this wealthy individual becoming involved in the oil lease. James Henriksen stood to make a lot of money if they could move the oil lease and the drilling of the well forward. And they were desperately running out of time to make that happen, or they were going to lose everything. And so he needed this wealthy individual to help fund this project.
There was just one problem.
Mr. Tormazov said that he told James Henriksen, under no uncertain terms would this person get involved as long as Doug Carlisle was involved, because of his previous dealings with him. Mr. Tormazov told me that this made James Henriksen very angry.
Turns out, the only thing standing between James Henriksen and millions of dollars is Doug Carlisle.
Money is always a motivation for murder. I mean, when the stakes get higher, sometimes the danger factor increases.
Money, they say, is the root of all evil. That may be a bit of an overstatement, but is it a common denominator in a majority of murders? Unfortunately, yes. When you have a trail of bad debts and damaged business relationships, greed is going to push to the top in Doug's case.
What investigators learn next cracks the case wide open.
Doug found an investor who lived in Texas, who had a lot of money, who was willing to invest in this land. He'd done the research, he knew that there was a lot of money in it. Doug had convinced this person that really they didn't need James, but he needed to be bought out because they were partners. And he'd agreed to do that. They were set to meet the following day in order to work out the finances to buy James out and to actually begin working on drilling oil wells.
Turns out Doug was murdered just days before he was set to cut James out of the business. If James had caught wind of the plan, he'd have even more motive to want Doug dead.
We're trying to piece everything together. DeLeo had been in North Dakota since at least Thanksgiving. He hadn't been back to Spokane. We knew Henriksen had been in North Dakota consistently even longer than that. Neither of them had been to town recently, which again creates issues when these are your two suspects and you know that they haven't been anywhere near the murder.
This is now the second viable suspect that police have had to strike off their list. So now they are losing momentum. They've spun their wheels for a while now with these people. Where do you go next?
Police finally get a breakthrough when DNA is pulled from the glove found at the crime scene.
25 days after the murder, I received a phone call from the State Patrol Crime Lab and was told that they had a hit to an individual by the name of Tim Suko.
When we first hear the name Timothy Suko, I got very excited, but it was hampered a little bit by we'd never heard that name before. And it came off a glove that I found in a field. What if it's just a coincidence? What if Timothy Suko is the next door neighbor? We didn't know who it was at that point.
I immediately began researching Timothy Suko and found that he was a multi-time convicted felon of violent crimes, first-degree robberies, gun crimes, and that he lived in the Spokane area. I started looking for Timothy Suko's connection to anybody associated with Doug Carlisle because he didn't know Doug and didn't have a motive for killing him.
Knowing there's a small crime world in Spokane, detectives start piecing together a potential conspiracy to commit murder. Could Timothy Suko have been hired to kill Doug Carlisle?
Robert DeLeo was also a true bad guy in Spokane. He comes across as very gregarious and friendly, but he's dangerous. And I wondered, his contacts in Spokane, did they have something to do with Doug's murder, and what was his real involvement with James Henriksen? I believed we had a true hitman case.
Investigators now theorize James Henriksen masterminded the murder of Doug Carlisle by hiring Robert DeLeo to contract out the job to local thug, Timothy Suko.
Murder for hire schemes are fortunately fairly rare. Most people act impulsively and do their own dirty work. Whoever's concocted this murderous scheme simply doesn't want to get their hands dirty or wants to leave themselves an alibi. So you're essentially looking for an absolute stranger who committed the murder for some kind of payoff. The key to finding them in that case is to find the person who did have the motive and ideally linking them to the killer.
So the first thing we do is try and connect Timothy Suko to James Henriksen and Robert DeLeo, but he doesn't connect to any of them.
Detectives place Timothy Suko on 24-hour undercover surveillance.
We began following Timothy Suko around, trying to find out everything we can about him. We find out that he works for an asbestos removal company in the Spokane Valley. As we start looking at the company, we see some vans parked out front. One of them, which looks exactly like the van that had been described to us at the crime scene.
I checked our list of 75 vehicles that we received from the state of Washington as potential owners of those suspect vehicles, and that asbestos removal company was listed as an owner of one of those matching vans. I had undercover detectives go out and view that van, and that van had some very unique identifying marks on it, which exactly matched the van at the crime scene. I was very certain that this was the vehicle used in the murder of Doug Carlisle.
While the evidence connecting Timothy Sukow to the crime scene is strong, it's not enough to charge him with Doug Carlisle's murder.
We began diving into cell phone records. We began looking at towers. Timothy Sukow had left his cell phone at home because he didn't want to be tracked. He knew a little bit about how police worked. His driver got bored and turned his phone back on and was playing on the phone while he was waiting. So we were able to place the van and the driver at the scene for about 2 hours beforehand.
With the evidence now stacked against him, Timothy Sukow is arrested for the murder of Doug Carlisle.
Not only do we have DNA linking this person there, we find no other reason for him to be in that area, and now we have our van that was used as the getaway van. So we start putting everything together and we bring him in.
On the night I arrested Mr. Sukow, he was in denial, refused to speak with me, and in fact, he fell asleep on the interview room table.
Back in basic homicide school, you learn that when someone's done a serious crime, they're constantly looking over their shoulder. They have trouble sleeping. They're waiting for the police to show up knocking at their door. So when you arrest someone and you tell them they're under arrest and you know they did it, all that pressure's off now. And it's not uncommon for suspects to fall asleep. And so we knew we had our guy.
I got a search warrant to access Tim's phone, and in that phone was James Henrikson's name. It says James, North Dakota, and it was James's phone number attached to it. So at that point, I knew that at least in some way, Tim Sukow knew James Henrikson directly.
About an hour after the murder, Timothy Sukow sent a text message to Robert DeLeau saying, "Tell the boss to watch the news." This was obviously letting Henrikson know that he had carried out the murder.
At this point in the investigation, I've got an overwhelming amount of evidence that's pointing toward Mr. DeLeau and Mr. Henrikson's involvement in Mr. Carlisle's murder.
Detectives haul Robert DeLeau into the station for questioning.
I told Mr. DeLeau, you know the game. First to the table gets the best deal. And he was trying to beat Mr. Sukow to the table to provide information. Ultimately, DeLeau admitted to brokering the murder of Doug Carlisle for James Henrikson.
With the confession that James Henrikson was responsible for the hit on Doug Carlisle, detectives are able to piece together his final 24 hours.
Timothy Sukow had been up at the house for a couple hours, waiting for the Carlisles to return home. They'd been at a church function that began at about 5 o'clock. They drove home, parked their car probably about 6:55 in the evening.
They entered the residence. Alberta started up the stairs. When she heard voices in the house, so she came back downstairs to see who was there. She actually saw the shooter and saw him with a gun.
At 7:02, Timothy Sukow shot Doug Carlisle 7 times and ran away. At 7:03 p.m., Alberta Carlisle called 911, reporting that someone had just shot her husband.
Medics pronounced Doug dead at 7:18 in the evening.
Timothy Sukow then disposed of the murder weapon.
Timothy Sukow had driven out to the Spokane Valley, out to a bridge, and tossed the murder weapon into the river.
My biggest takeaway in this case is that Doug is not unlike a lot of investors who has this sort of modest demeanor or veneer, and he likes to take risks in financial games. And when they begin losing money, the stakes are even higher than I think Doug and a lot of these people initially guessed.
Robert DeLeo pleads guilty to conspiracy and solicitation to commit murder and is sentenced to 22 years in prison.
Mr. DeLeo is a sociopath who has no guilt feelings about anything he's done.
Timothy Sukow pleads guilty to murder and receives a sentence of 30 years.
He's gonna be like 80 years old if he ever sees daylight again. So basically it's a death sentence he got, so I think his sentence was fair, provided the information he gave and the help he gave to the case to get the actual person that I believe is responsible.
James Henriksen is found guilty of murder for hire and sentenced to life in prison.
James Hendrickson, to me, very much presents like a classic quintessential psychopath. He starts out as a con man, wheeling and dealing, moving on to bigger scams, which eventually ends up into being a mastermind of a murder.
This was a case where we took down some real bad people. These weren't people that just lost their temper and killed someone. These were pre-planned murders. What this came down to was greed. James saw a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and he was willing to kill anyone who got between him and that money. And Doug Carlisle was going to buy him out, and he wasn't going to get that money, so he had him killed. It was all about money, it was all about greed.
This case was the most complicated case that I've ever worked on. It meant a lot to the Carlisle family that I was able to bring this case to resolution. I received phone calls from every son from Alberta thanking me. They're just good people who are appreciative that their dad got justice.
Doug Carlisle was a truly innocent victim in this case, and the people involved are sitting in prison where they deserve to be.
This was something savage. It scared the community.
A brutal attack.
She had at least 10 fractured ribs, fractured larynx, bruises all over her body.
By posing her and making her look like some type of a sexual deviant, she is basically being humiliated after the end of her life.
A twisted tale with multiple suspects.
He is being so secretive, he's being so careful to cover his tracks.
Maybe they did have a sexual relationship. Maybe something went wrong. Or was it some unknown subject that we had in our community that enjoyed doing this?
Everybody is a suspect.
The truth will be revealed.
She was doing some online dating, and whoever killed her is in her computer, and that'll tell you all you need to know.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Deer Park, Washington, 20 miles north of Spokane. It's a nature lover's paradise.
It is full of fun things to do, both winter and summer. People come here to take their vacations. It's such a nice town. And so we feel lucky to live here.
It's not overly crowded. People know people still. Everyone knows their neighbor.
Deer Park is a quiet place, and it's not known for violent crimes. Maybe property crimes, some family disputes that we deal with.
But on a chilly December evening, the quiet safety of the town would be violently disturbed when police get a call from a distraught man looking for his ex-wife, Shannon Starbuck.
He asked for a deputy to respond to her house to do a welfare check. He explained to the deputy that it was totally uncommon for her to take off and be gone for periods of time. Responding deputies walked around the house, looked through the windows, looked for signs of forced entry. Is there some kind of foul play here? At the time, they did not have enough probable cause or reasonable suspicion to enter this residence without a warrant.
The next day, police get another call, this time from her panicked mother.
According to her mother, they spoke at 9 a.m. in the morning on a daily basis. And it had been 2 mornings that they had not spoken. And that prompted officers to respond again. They were able to obtain a key, and they made entry at that time and discovered the body.
Detectives Mike Ricketts and Lyle Johnston of the Spokane County Sheriff's Office rush to the scene.
There was no signs of a break-in. I didn't see anything obvious within the living room. When I entered the master bedroom, here is this white female that's in her mid-30s or so, laying on the bed.
She was laying on her back, face up. She had bruising near her neck area and some bruising around her facial area. The bruising itself would indicate to me that she was beat. There were no knife wounds. There were no gun wounds. Considered a possibility that was suffocation or strangulation. There was a robe that was kind of awkwardly placed on her. There was a massage vibrator type of device that people would use to massage their muscles that was wrapped inside of that robe awkwardly. Not like she had done that. She was posed that way.
Detectives confirm the woman is 42-year-old Shannon Starbuck.
Shannon was a lovely, vivacious woman. She was married to a man named Clay, and they had recently become divorced.
Now, they had 5 children. 2 older boys lived with Clay, and the 3 younger, the 2 girls and the youngest son, lived with Shannon.
She was vibrant, she was beautiful, she was kind. She was also going back to school. That time, she was restarting her life.
Who would break into the home of a lovely woman, the mother of 5 children, and do such a horrible thing to her? This was something savage. It scared the community.
To catch her killer, detectives will need to piece together the last 24 hours of Shannon Starbuck's life. They start by processing the crime scene.
I didn't find any sign of a struggle inside the bedroom. We collected DNA swabs from her neck and under her fingernails. All of the blankets from the bed were inside the wash machine, which was just right outside the master bedroom door. And the front of the wash machine had been completely wiped down. And appears to be some type of cleanup of the crime scene to hide any potential evidence that may have been left on the bed by the suspect. At the foot of the bed is what appears to be a safe. And inside there are several sexual toys that are staged in a way so that they could be obviously seen from anyone who's walking past.
Detectives start working up a profile on Shannon's killer.
By posing her and making her look like some type of a sexual deviant, she is basically being humiliated after the end of her life. This would appear to be someone that has some type of a vendetta against Shannon to take this much time and effort to make her look this bad.
Is it somebody that was close to her, that knows her, that was angry with her, wanted to get back at her? Or was it some unknown subject that we had in our community that enjoyed doing this?
The first person detectives want to speak with is Shannon's ex-husband, Clay Starbuck.
Oftentimes in these type of investigations, we're going to look at the domestic partner or the ex.
The sad reality is these are the vast majority of the offenders who are taking the lives of women. It's not the stranger hiding behind the bush. It's not a serial killer. It's the people that have already been in their lives.
I met Clay and I said, "Hi, I'm Detective Dressbeck. I understand you have some questions." He said, "Yeah. I want to know what's going on. Nobody will tell me anything." I said, "You don't know what happened?" He said, "No, nobody will tell me anything." So I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but your wife was found dead in her bedroom." And he just collapsed on the floor. And it's prudent and appropriate as an investigator to give them room to react in whatever fashion they're gonna react. At one point, he even excused himself, went into the bathroom, and I could hear him heaving like he was throwing up. Like this was very traumatic to him.
After Clay gets over the shock of Shannon's death, detectives ask him when he last saw his ex-wife.
Clay Starbuck had told us that he had a small car that didn't run very well. So on the day in question, he starts the car up. He drives it around this community area where he lives in Deer Park. And it stalls approximately 2 to 3 blocks from Shannon Starbuck's house.
I was cranking and trying to start it. It didn't start. And I texted Shannon and said, you know, like, car quit, can you take the kids? And she texted me and said, okay. And so she took the kids to school. So I walk home.
He gets back to his house and then he goes to sleep because his back is hurting. And at that time, his phone must have died because the battery wasn't charged.
Clay says he went back to work on his car from 11:10 a.m. until 3:30 p.m., returning to his home a number of times during the day to get more tools.
2:45 p.m., the children were out of school and texted Shannon asking where she was, who's gonna pick me up.
Shannon was supposed to go to the school and pick up the children, and she doesn't arrive.
In the late afternoon, while his phone was dead, Clay says he missed a number of texts.
3:17 p.m., Shannon texted Clay asking if he could pick up the kids. And that was the last text from her phone that afternoon.
She says something like, I just got up, can you get the kids? But my phone wasn't on. And so Austin left work and picked up the kids.
Clay wasn't worried at that point because he thought he would see Shannon later that night.
There was a basketball game one of the oldest sons was playing in at the high school that evening. And Shannon usually would show up at those games, however, she wasn't there that night.
I sent Shannon a couple texts just saying, you know, get a hold of us.
After the basketball game, Clay and the kids went to Shannon's house.
We've walked around the house. I've walked around the house with the kids with a flashlight, looking in there Thursday night.
Okay.
And
And then what happened?
Well, we went back to my house.
Okay.
And the kids kept trying to call Shannon, and I think I sent her another text. On Friday, I sent her a text and said, if we don't hear from you by 7 p.m. tonight, I'm gonna call and have the sheriff find you.
Detectives are now able to narrow down the window of time that Shannon was murdered.
Shannon's death probably occurred somewhere on December 1st after 3:17 p.m. And sometime before December 2nd, around 9 a.m.
She had a routine of talking to her mother at a specific time in the morning, and that phone call doesn't come. So We begin to operate under the assumption that she was deceased by that particular time.
Investigators check Clay's cell phone records. It corroborates what he told investigators.
He was cooperative during the interview, and he provided a DNA sample voluntarily.
With his alibi having checked out, they ask Clay who he thinks might have wanted to hurt Shannon in such a brutal way.
The thing that he kept saying was, look at her computer, and that'll tell you all you need to know. He said she was doing some online dating, and whoever killed her is in there.
Who did they meet in person? Who did they ghost? Who may be motivated to come after them? Who was not who they said they were? I mean, online dating is the Wild West.
Detectives are working a theory that whoever murdered Shannon Starbuck could be connected to her online dating. They start by scouring her phone, looking for recent dates.
One of the first ones that came up was a guy by the name of Tom. And Tom had sent her some text messages that very day. Tom and Shannon had been flirting back and forth, and it was obvious that they're attracted to one another.
As they continue reading the texts, alarm bells sound.
Tom is encouraging Shannon to send him some kind of racy pictures, and one of the pictures that he asked for is very similar to the pose that we find Shannon's deceased body in.
Is this a coincidence? How is this possible?
That threw up red flags for us. We're thinking he is our suspect.
They track Tom down by calling the number on Shannon's phone.
When we first talked to Tom, we went to his residence. Tom told us he met Shannon through a dating application. They had met, they had communications on the phone and via text. They had not been intimate.
Detectives asked Tom to account for his whereabouts during the time they believe Shannon was murdered.
Tom Walker told us that he left from work approximately 9:40 a.m. to go to a funeral. And then he returned to work at around 10:50 a.m. He said that he had texted her about going to the funeral and asked her how her day was going. She subsequently responded to him a little while later, around 12, asking if he would like to meet her for lunch at that time. She thought it was odd because she knew that he had a funeral to attend to and that he would be at work and would not be able to meet on December 1st. We were able to investigate that and totally corroborate everything he told us. His boss eliminated him by verifying when he was at work, when he went to the funeral, when he came back, and how late he worked that evening. He was nowhere near Shannon's residence on December 1st. Tom also provided us with a DNA sample voluntarily. His DNA was not found on Shannon Starbuck in the place of the injuries.
So we were able to rule Tom out in the death of Shannon Starbuck.
Still believing Shannon's dating history is the key to finding her killer, detectives delve deeper into her personal life.
Similar to going to a bar, for instance, to meet people and not knowing them. Online, you're also potentially connecting with people you don't know. And there is some research to suggest that online dating behavior is associated with increased risk of violence.
So sometime shortly after noon, Shannon text messages the guy by the name of John and appears to be setting up some type of a rendezvous for later in the evening, on the same day as her death.
Detectives set to work finding John Wilson.
We were able to take the photograph off of John's Facebook account, run it through the open source search engine, and we were able to match that photograph with a doctor out of Maryland. Once we contacted that doctor, we were able to verify that that wasn't really a picture of John, and John is just an unknown person who's faking these profiles for the purposes of dating multiple women.
I think 50% of people or more report lying about their profiles or information online. So it begs the question, who are you talking to?
John's fake online presence leads detectives to theorize that he is somehow involved in Shannon's murder.
He's difficult to find, and he's already being untruthful about his identity. He seems to have disappeared into the wind the moment that Shannon Starbuck is murdered. So we thought, John is our guy, because he is being so secretive, he's being so careful to cover his tracks. We reached out to John directly. I sent him both an email and a message to him saying, you need to contact the police. So when John calls me, he is very skeptical. Sounds like he can't really believe the police are reaching out to him. But I inform him that I'm investigating the death of Shannon Starbuck. His first reaction was that he wanted to consult with an attorney.
When you see a suspect immediately lawyer up, as they say, and engage their attorney, it doesn't necessarily point to guilt, but it points to them having something to hide. No matter what the reason, that would automatically elevate them, in my experience, to someone who requires closer scrutiny.
Detectives ask for the man's real name, but he refuses to give it to them.
And at that time, I scribbled out a quick note saying, hey, tell him he's got 20 seconds, tell us who he is, identify himself, or we're gonna put his photograph out on the media everywhere to find out who he is.
It's called offering the out. And this is frequently where we see they'll cop to something that they wouldn't normally confess to because it's a preferred alternative to what's being insinuated.
At that point, John does give me his true identity, and we make an arrangement to meet the following day with his attorney.
Detectives finally come face to face with their prime suspect, John Kenline.
And so John did lay out the fact that he is married, he has a job that is kind of respected in the community, and yet he's leading this double lifestyle of meeting up with multiple women. And so he doesn't want this to be known. He feels that he's got a lot to lose, potentially his job, his marriage, his own children, his house. Everything is riding on the line. Yet at the same time, he realizes the predicament he's in. He's the #1 suspect in a homicide, so it all has to come out.
If somebody is willing to cheat or lie to their family, they're probably willing to lie to investigators.
Detectives ask John where he was during the time they believe Shannon was murdered.
He told us that he dropped his kids off at school that morning and that he had plans to see Shannon approximately 10:30 a.m. in Deer Park. He drove up to Shannon's house and there was no answer.
He admits that he's been there at the house, he's made phone calls on the day that she is murdered. Everything puts him in the area.
Detectives suspect John Kenline murdered Shannon after a date gone bad.
What crossed my mind was maybe they did meet up and maybe they did have a sexual relationship. Maybe something went wrong. We suspected that John was our killer.
Detectives have zeroed in on John Kenline as the prime suspect in the murder of Shannon Starbuck.
John told us he drove up to Shannon's house and there was no answer. So he utilized some public phones in the Deer Park area and he tried to call her, still didn't get any answer. He actually drove back to her house, still no sign of Shannon, nobody answered the door. He also went around the house knocking on windows and that, there was still no answer.
After he left, Kenline claims he finally heard from Shannon. She texted saying she was out for lunch and was sorry she missed him.
So sometime shortly after noon, Shannon text messages John, and appears to be setting up some type of a rendezvous for later in the evening, making plans for that night.
So John went back that evening and tried to meet up with her, and there was no answer.
Detectives are suspicious of John's story.
His own alibi put him at the house during that time frame when Shannon was murdered.
There could be a variety of motivations that John would have in showing up at her house. It could be that she was about to expose him for the charlatan and the fraud that he was. It could be that he felt she had ghosted him, and how dare she. It could be that he just wanted to take the relationship to the next level and then found when he was there that, in fact, his fantasies were more twisted maybe than even he knew.
There's just one problem.
At the time, John did provide us with a DNA sample, which we tested along with other samples, and he was eliminated as a contributor to DNA.
The fact John's DNA is ruled out doesn't necessarily mean he's not the killer. Every alibi should be independently corroborated through some secondary source.
John seems to be our #1 suspect. He's just not admitting to having been in the house or having direct contact with her. We still had a lot of investigation to do before we could rule him out.
With John stonewalling them, the investigation hits a wall.
I think it did shock the people of Deer Park as well as the Spokane community. A mother of 5 children murdered inside her own home. No apparent signs of forced entry. Did she answer the door and someone forced her way in? That type of incident without answers scares people.
We had a very serious threat on the streets for the community at large, and that was very stressful for me at the time because I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to make sure we covered all of our bases and that we were headed in the right direction.
But soon, their hard work pays off.
We always request records directly from the cell phone provider. And in this case, when I was able to get records for Shannon Starbuck's phone, I was able to go through them and I found a 911 call that was not listed in her call records on her phone. Some cell phones actually mask 911 calls, and that would be if you were a victim and you called 911, as soon as you hang up, the suspect wouldn't be able to grab your phone and see that you had called. So it's kind of a safety feature.
The discovery of the 911 call rocks the investigation.
And I can actually remember standing up at my desk and announcing to all the other detectives in the room, she called 911, and it was extremely exciting. We're working on the premise that Shannon died somewhere in a 24-hour time span. So looking at those phone records, it timestamps 9:17 in the morning as the time that this event is taking place. We're able to verify that with 911, and it was an oh my gosh moment of we really know when this happened now.
To me and to other investigators, that indicated that that was the time she was attacked.
911, what are you reporting?
And she was killed shortly thereafter.
Hello?
Obviously, this revelation is shocking, and the fact that investigators and hearing this for the first time, I mean, this was under their noses all along. She was essentially in the throes of death.
Detectives have learned that Shannon Starbuck called 911 in distress in the early morning of December 1st, the day she was killed.
So we were unaware up until weeks into the investigation that she had ever called 911. But once we saw it in the phone records, I was able to contact the 911 dispatch center, have them pull the records for that specific date and time, and they found a recording that they didn't know existed.
911, what are you reporting?
When you listen to the recording, you can hear a grunt and a muffled noise in the background that sounds like someone possibly being assaulted.
911, what are you reporting? Hello?
It was eerie in the sense that you knew this is a struggle that's going on and this person's fighting for their life, and it doesn't turn out well. The 911 receiver actually talks at the exact same time that that noise is in the background.
911, what are you reporting?
And it would be my belief that he probably talked over it and didn't realize that there was anyone on the end. He did call the phone number immediately back, but there was no answer. It goes to voicemail because the phone has been shut off or disabled by this time.
Hi, this is Shannon. Please leave a message.
And therefore, there is no further contact.
Almost without exception, in every jurisdiction, 911 hang-up calls are at least a one-officer dispatch.
Would it necessarily have stopped what was occurring? Not likely, but maybe perhaps her killer could have been found much earlier.
The discovery of the 911 call sends the investigation into a whole new direction.
Initially, it appeared that Shannon was most likely alive in the afternoon of December 1st. She's texting to multiple people, both Tom, John, Clay at some point, and the kids as well.
Detectives now believe it was likely Shannon's killer, trying to pretend Shannon was still alive.
Your scope of possible suspects really starts to slim down because now you can check out their alibis and know whether or not it was possible for them to have been involved or not.
With the new evidence, detectives take another look at their prime suspect, John Kenline.
We discovered that at 9:20, he's taking the kids to school. So to me, that's pretty closely ruling John out as being involved and getting back and forth between those locations with the amount of time it would take to go from Spokane to Deer Park. I am now convinced John Kenline was not involved in the murder of Shannon Starbuck.
This is a case that would be and has been extraordinarily frustrating for investigators in that you have some pretty specific crime scene behaviors and a puzzling scene and a number of viable suspects, and nothing is shaking out. The unanswered questions are going to keep you up at night.
After ruling out John Kenline in the murder of Shannon Starbuck, detectives go back to the drawing board.
We're looking at saying, okay, somebody got on her phone and was communicating with John Kenline, was communicating with Tom Walker, was returning messages.
Detectives do a deeper dive into Shannon's personal life and make an alarming discovery.
While I'm talking to the friends of Shannon, they are informing me that Clay has been nothing but trouble for Shannon. He has harassed her, he has done damage to her place, he has done damage to her vehicle, he has threatened her.
He owes her a significant amount of child support. He's a very much controlling person. He's not happy with the fact that she's dating other men, that he has no control over her, and he has been stalking and harassing her for some time.
When it's learned that Clay has been stalking Shannon, it's particularly troubling to me as a psychologist. We know from the research in intimate partner homicides that when stalking is involved, it increases the risk 2 to 3 times that somebody is going to end up murdered.
We discovered she was so concerned about Clay stalking her, essentially, that she did ask for and receive a domestic violence protection order.
Tragically, the use of restraining orders like we see in this case, I mean, it's a piece of paper. The existence of that paper is actually seen by the offender as a voucher to actually act on what they've already been planning. It actually infuriates and escalates their behavior to the point that it has the opposite of the desired effect.
She had told individuals in the community that if something happened to her, if she was harmed or killed, that it was Clay Starbuck that had done it to her.
Based on these new revelations, detectives take a second look at Clay Starbuck.
So Clay had given us a story about his vehicle breaking down and how he had sent some text messages to Shannon to try to get her to take the children to school. And then after his car broke down, he went back to his house and fell asleep. Somewhere in there, he said that his cell phone battery died and his cell phone was off for a majority of the day. And that in itself wasn't contradictory to anything we found in the cell phone records. His phone was actually off for a majority of the day. But when we examine cell phone records frequently, we don't look at just a very small, frequent time frame because people live and breathe on their cell phones in this day and age. You develop patterns. So for Clay Starbucks, over a 1-year total of cell phone records were obtained. And what we were able to see was that at no other time over the preceding year has his phone ever been off for the amount of time that it was off on the day that Shannon Starbuck was murdered. He had never in the prior year had text messages sent to him that he didn't respond to in a timely fashion, or go for periods of time where there was no activity. Yet on the day of Shannon Starbuck's murder, all of those things happened.
Detectives meet with Clay, testing his alibi against the new timeline.
We ask him to go for a little ride with us to show us the route that he drove and where his vehicle broke down and how he walked back to his house, which he agreed to do. Now, this is a golf course community, and there are actually greens in between some of these residences. And where the vehicle stalled is across from one of these greens that goes in between these houses and would have been the most likely direct route to walk back to his house. And in this particular December, there isn't a lot of snow. There wasn't anything really impeding someone from taking that route. But Clay insists that he walked down the sidewalk and stayed off of the golf green, at which point he turns and goes east through the neighborhood back to his own residence. We follow this route, and we specifically look for home security cameras, and we find one. We contact the homeowners and ask them if we can look at their security footage, and after looking at the footage numerous times, we cannot once find Clay Starbuck walking past this residence that he claims he walked past 4 times on that day. I questioned him on this at least 2 to 3 times. Are you sure this is the route you've taken? And he is adamant that that's the route he's taken. And now after looking at the footage from the surveillance video, it's obvious that Clay Starbuck isn't being truthful with us about where he was and what he was doing.
Detectives have now shifted the focus of their investigation in the murder of Shannon Starbuck to her ex-husband, Clay, when a surprising piece of evidence emerges.
DNA that was identified as belonging to male Starbuck lineage was found in the area where Shannon was strangled and suffocated. So it wasn't DNA just found on a ledge or an item of clothing or something that had been there for a while. This was DNA that was found on Shannon Starbuck, where she was injured, part of the cause of her death.
In order to link the killer's DNA left on Shannon's body to Clay, detectives must prove it belongs to him and not one of his sons.
We were able to eliminate the adult male Starbuck children because one of them was at school during that day and the other one was at work. That left us with Clay Starbuck as being the provider of the DNA on Shannon Starbuck.
Closing in on their killer, detectives bring Clay Starbuck down to the station to confront him with the damning evidence.
Clay Starbuck agreed to be interviewed. He waived his rights, so we proceeded with a recorded interview with him.
Part of how we got here today, Clay, is the fact that all of the evidence has lined up to show that you have not been truthful with us to this point. All of the evidence is lined up to show that you were there at the house on that particular day that Shannon died.
Is that no? I can't hear you. No? Now, don't sit here and tell me you weren't there.
because we have the proof that you were there, okay?
No, I've been in that house probably 30 times.
Okay, it's not about the house.
It's not about the house, and
It's not about the house. How did your DNA get on her neck and her face and under her fingernails?
you see my DNA was there under her fingernails and around her mouth. I don't have any scratches or bruises. You guys looked at me for that. I didn't do that.
I said, I understand that, Clay, but let me go get something. I went and grabbed the lab report, and I showed it to him. This is the laboratory report that indicates your DNA is under her fingernails, is on her neck, and on her face.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just have a problem believing it. Your DNA is there because you murdered Shannon.
He started breathing heavy. He was almost hyperventilating.
I'm not doing very well right now.
You're not doing very well because you're under arrest for murder. I agree with you. You're not doing very well right now. At that point, he shut down. He didn't make any more statements.
Detectives arrest Clay Starbuck and charge him with the murder of his wife, Shannon.
Sadly, Shannon's fatal mistake was daring to start a new life without Clay. And it really drove him crazy. Clay killed Shannon, I think, because he was jealous and he did not want to have to pay her child support every month. And at the time of the murder, he owed her more than $9,000. And so it appears that Clay decided that he could get out of these financial problems by simply killing her.
Detectives now believe they know what happened to Shannon Starbuck in the last 24 hours of her life.
December 1st, around 8 a.m., Clay text messages Shannon, asks her to take the children to school. Most likely during the time frame that she's away from the house, taking the children to school, Clay has snuck into the house and he lays in wait for her while she is going about her morning routine.
While Clay is waiting for Shannon to return home, he turns off his cell phone.
Shortly after getting back to the house, he attacks her. She attempts to call 911, but that call is cut short.
911, what are you reporting?
And her phone is turned off, and then he murders her through a struggle, strangulation. He positions her in a humiliating fashion for the rest of the community to be aware of after the fact, and makes her look like the bad person because she's doing some online dating and things that he doesn't necessarily approve of.
After she was attacked, I believe Clay got on her phone and on her computer and started looking through it and communicating back with these individuals, trying to frame either Tom Walker or John Kenline as being the ones that committed the murder.
Clay then returns home, turns on his cell phone, and waits for his kids to get home from school.
Clearly, this festering jealousy had led him to the point where he was prepared to commit murder, but at the same time, he was able to keep things under control and keep his behavior premeditated and organized enough that he uses these texts to artificially engineer this alibi.
It's Thursday, Shannon's day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm the guarantee. I'm the go-to guy on taking him to school. So, but Thursday, the car's dead. I'm getting that going back and forth. And at 3:30 on Thursday, she says something like, I just got up. Can you get the kids? But my phone wasn't on.
For me, I also wonder, is there an element of sadism here? Is there a deeper quality to him that really wants to have Shannon experience pain and suffering?
Clay Starbuck is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Clay definitely planned this out. There was a significant amount of premeditation, and I think that someone that can be that calculating and that terrible to any other human being. Spending the rest of his life in prison is definitely what he deserved.
It's horrendous, but not just because of what happened to Shannon. It's what it did to this family. When Clay Starbuck killed Shannon, he robbed their children of their mother, and then because of his life sentence, he robbed his children of a father. It was a selfish act based in greed and jealousy, and it just didn't have to happen.
She was a mother, 8-year-old triplets, and she was face down on the couch, strangled to death.
It's likely that whoever killed her was somebody who knew her and was conversing with her, and then would have flown into a rage and attacked her.
A cold-hearted killing.
The scarf could have been used to strangle Dana to death.
This case was a genuine whodunit.
A twisted mystery with multiple suspects.
The police looked at the estranged husband. They'd looked at the boyfriend. They'd looked at the stalker. Somebody did this. They just had to figure out who that was.
The truth will be revealed.
I may describe this person best as somebody who's a fledgling psychopath.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. At the foot of Mount Rainier in Washington lies Puyallup, a quaint, peaceful town with nature trails and tree-lined streets.
Puyallup is a smaller town. It's an old town. It has some nice scenery. You move here for the schools and the parks and for your kids. Puyallup is a safe town. It's going to have a lower crime rate. It's not the kind of place where you expect to see a lot of violent crime.
But in August 2001, on a day like any other, police get a worrying call about one of the town's newest residents.
Dana Laskowski worked as a nanny for 2 doctors, and she was scheduled to arrive at 7:30 in the morning at work, and she didn't show up. This was very unusual for her. She was very reliable, so her employers called us, and we responded out to her house to check her welfare.
About 11 in the morning, the police arrive at Dana's residence to just make sure that she's okay. Knock on the door, and there's no answer. They did a perimeter check, and they looked in the windows and tried to see if they could see anything, and they didn't notice anything. But they did find that the back door was open, and so they went ahead and entered the house.
Our officers came in calling Dana's name and then found her on the couch in the living room. She was underneath blankets. She was in a position where her head was resting on her arm, and then her other arm, we found it behind her back. She was deceased.
Police will always do at least a cursory examination of the body to see where the injuries might be and to look for any kind of things like stab wounds or gunshot wounds. There were nothing like that, but they did notice injuries to her throat, ligature marks. And there was a scarf close by, which indicated that she'd been strangled. At this point, that's a homicide investigation.
But who would want to kill 36-year-old Dana Laskowski?
Dana was a mother with 8-year-old triplets, and she had a niece, Amanda, that she felt like a mother to, and said, you can come and go here however you please, and so can your friends, and if you need anything from me, I'll be there.
When she'd walk into a room, she would get to know everybody in the room. Everybody would like her. She's very outgoing, very personable.
She was always somebody that had a kind word or a kind deed for everybody.
Tasked with investigating Dana's murder are veteran detective Scott Bramhall and prosecuting attorney Stephen Penner.
There are certainly crime scenes, homicide scenes, where there's, blood spatter, a victim on the ground, visible injuries, maybe a disruption all around the room. That wasn't the case here. There wasn't any blood, no weapons. There wasn't anything really broken. She was face down on the couch.
When police turn Dana over, they find bruising on her neck and dried blood around her nose and ears.
The medical examiner ruled that the cricoid cartilage of her throat was fractured, so it's a crushing injury to the throat.
Dana died from being strangled to death, probably with her own scarf. It's possible to strangle somebody with your hands, but like any tool, a ligature makes it easier. If you're behind them with a ligature, it can be very difficult to get the ligature off the throat. And even if you can dig your fingers in between the ligature and your throat, it won't stop the compression of the airway. In this particular case, it appeared that the scarf that could have been used to strangle Dana to death. So the police searched for any kind of trace evidence, DNA, bodily fluids, something that they could use to try to identify the killer. They looked for everything they could and they didn't find anything. We kept going back to Dana's body, where it was found and what position it was in. Her arm up behind her back, face down on the couch, strangled to death. It suggested that there was a struggle. Whoever did this had enough strength to overpower someone who's literally fighting for their life.
The crime indicated the offender was strong, somebody with upper body strength. So we were assuming the offender would be a male.
To find Dana's killer, Detective Bramhall must reconstruct the final 24 hours of her life, starting with the crime scene.
There were abrasions to Dana Laskowski's knees and elbows, and they would be an indication that Dana Laskowski was not killed on the couch, that it was likely that there was a possible struggle on the floor. We were able to process the carpet with luminol. What we did was we marked on the rug the location of the luminol illuminations, and that formed a pattern. The pattern would be an indication that Dana was killed on the floor. The person that killed her would have then picked her up and placed her on the couch and then covered her up.
Investigators believe the killer was trying to make the body more comfortable after death, an example of undoing behavior.
Undoing is a type of psychological defense mechanism. We all have such mechanisms. In this case, the fact that she was covered with a blanket may indicate that somebody had engaged in undoing behavior to cancel out or counteract the murder. You could read some remorse or guilt into undoing behavior. It implies that there's some sort of relationship here between the killer and the victim.
That would indicate that the killer was someone who had affection for Dana. This isn't a random burglar who broke in and accidentally found her. This is somebody maybe who knew her. And that's important as you develop suspects.
Then, police receive significant information about Dana's murder.
The medical examiner was able to approximate that Dana had been there for a few hours before the police arrived, and most likely had died in the early hours of that morning.
We knocked on the neighbors' doors, and one said that they reported hearing a woman screaming during the night. They estimated that time at about 1 a.m., so that gave us a time frame.
We knew by 7:30 that morning, Dana probably was dead because she didn't show up for her job.
Having established Dana was killed between the hours of 1 and 7:30 a.m., police start looking into Dana's background for clues about her murder.
Dana was a mother. She had 3 young children, 8-year-old triplets, living with her. But at the time that Dana was murdered, they were with Steve, her husband. She had been recently separated. And police were able to establish that she had started dating What that does is that just increases the universe of people who might be suspects. To people that Dana would let into her house late at night that she would think that she was safe with, when it turned out that she wasn't.
Detectives asked Dana's employers if Dana had concerns about any of the men she'd been dating.
The people that she worked for as a nanny told the police that Dana had mentioned a man, Adam, who had turned as kind of a stalker.
Dana had just moved into her house, and Adam ran a bucket truck for a cable company. And Adam had come to install some cable.
When the job was done, Adam asked Dana out on a date. She wasn't interested, but that didn't stop him from pursuing her.
Adam was a guy who wouldn't take no for an answer and wouldn't leave her alone. His behavior escalated. Dana reported getting notes on her door, flowers, gifts, and he was surveilling her while she was at home, and then calls and texts that just wouldn't stop. By all indications, this was obsessive, controlling, angry behavior, which would make it more credible that this person might be able to get to the mental state, the emotional state, to kill somebody.
Then, what police learn next increases their interest in Adam as a suspect even further.
Dana's employers told us that Dana had said that if anything happened to her, it would be this cable guy. We find that significant, and we take that very seriously.
If she was scared enough to tell people that he might do something to me, something violent, and then something did happen to her, that, of course, raised concerns by the police.
At that point, Adam becomes the prime suspect.
Police are closing in on a suspect, a cable installer named Adam, who had been stalking Dana Laskowski in the weeks leading up to her murder.
Adam seemed to have a motive, seemed to have a behavior that would suggest that he was likely the killer.
We were focused on Adam as a prime suspect. And we got search warrants on his vehicle, bucket truck, on his locker at work, and we took him into custody. He was belligerent. He was very uncooperative and insisted he wasn't the one that killed her.
Detectives then press Adam about where he was the night Dana was killed.
On the night of the murder, he said he was at home hanging out with his friends.
Searches through Adam's phone records show he was at home that night.
Based on his alibi as he gave it and the way it checked out, he was moved down on the list of suspects for our investigation.
The police really thought Adam was the one who had killed Dana because of the stalking behavior. But now they have to turn their attention and resources to other suspects.
Investigators shift their focus to a small clue found at the crime scene.
Dana Laskowski had a phone number written on her hand in ink, and some of that was faded. But we looked at that phone number and looked at identifying whose phone number it was.
When police check the phone number, they discover it belongs to a 35-year-old man named Julian.
The phone number linked to Julian opens up a realm of possibilities as to his potential motive. This speaks to a certain degree of intimacy. The fact that it's taken down in this manner suggests that that number was important to her.
Detectives track down Julian and bring him in for questioning. They ask why his phone number would be on Dana's hand.
He was not really answering. I thought that was a little odd. So we kind of zeroed in on his relationship with Dana.
Julian tells investigators Dana was dating his best friend, Matt, but Julian seems nervous.
When we confronted Julian and asked him if he also had a relationship with Dana, he acknowledged that. So it turns out that they were having an affair.
With this startling revelation, detectives now wonder if Julian could be Dana's killer. They question where he was the night of the murder.
Julian said he was at a bar on the night that Dana was murdered. Said he was there about from 10:30 at night till past 1 a.m. Checking into the bar management seemed to indicate that that was consistent with the truth. He was with a group of friends. His friends vouched for him being there. So his alibi didn't put him anywhere near Dana's house that night.
With Julian's alibi ruling him out as Dana's killer, detectives question if their affair gave his friend Matt a motive for murder.
Dana's killer would be the kind of person who she wouldn't think twice about having in her house, but also could be the kind of person who might be jealous and could get angry enough to strangle her to death. Romantic relationships can lead to that kind of intensity of feelings. Of course, they don't all do, but a lot of times when you see that type of crime, that's the situation. The nature of this killing was very personal, and so Matt, who seemed to be kind of a primary boyfriend for Dana, naturally became a suspect.
Armed with Julian's information, investigators dig deeper into Dana and Matt's relationship.
We were told Matt was very much in love with Dana, and Dana liked Matt, but was less into Matt than Matt was into Dana.
In this case, we have one person in this relationship is clearly more invested than the other. On top of that, he discovers that she's sleeping with his best friend. That automatically interjects a degree of obvious jealousy and resentment.
Dana's phone records reveal that she spoke with Matt repeatedly the night she was killed.
According to the phone records, Dana had been on the phone with her boyfriend, Matt, talking to him a few times between 11:30 and midnight.
When detectives ask Dana's friends about Matt, they learn he's a rough type of guy.
We were being told by Dana's friends and associates and family that Matt was a biker and a person that used hard drugs, the person who could fight. He was a person we were told he could fight 10 men at once. And so we looked at him as a very good suspect. It was possible Matt found out about the affair and went and confronted Dana because he felt that he had been jilted. And during that confrontation, flew into a rage, killing Dana.
In the murder of Dana Laskowski, investigators have zeroed in on her boyfriend, Matt, who they learn is based just outside of Vancouver, Canada.
The fact that Matt lived in Canada, that alone wouldn't eliminate him as a suspect. Puyallup's only about a 3 or 4 hour drive.
So we went up to Canada to look into him. And when we arrived, we met with them, explained what we were there for, asked him where he was on the night that Dana was murdered.
When Matt is questioned, he denies having any involvement in Dana's death.
Matt said he tried to get down to Puyallup to visit Dana on the night that she died, but he was stopped at the border because he had a suspended license and was not allowed entry into the country.
So Matt told the police that at the time that Dana was murdered, he was at the Canadian border crossing and could not have been the one who had committed the murder.
We looked into it, and we could verify that he was where he said he was.
All of that was documented, not by Matt, but by the border officials. It was about as good an alibi as you could get. It was, in fact, backed up by the government.
With Matt cleared as a suspect, investigators ask him for any information that could lead to Dana's killer.
Matt said that he was on the phone with Dana on the night of the murder, and she seemed a little bit inhibited by some of her conversation. And that suggested that Dana might have had somebody in the house.
Matt suggests the mystery person could have been Dana's estranged husband, Steve.
Steve would certainly be a natural person to go talk to. And this was someone she'd shared part of her life with. But the state of being separated is a difficult state to be in emotionally. And depending on what else was going on, it could lead to that kind of anger that was necessary for this killing.
Steve might be jilted and angry enough to kill her, or they may just have had a planned meeting to exchange the children, could have erupted into a spontaneous argument, which led to the murder. All of these were possibilities that we had to look into.
Detectives dig into Steve and discover he took out a life insurance policy on Dana.
The factor of a life insurance policy would be a motive for murder for financial reasons.
When we look at early typologies of murder, one of the earliest classification, even going back to the 1920s, classified gain or a financial motive as being one of the primary motivators for homicide.
We also felt that passion, jealousy, anger at having the family split up would be a possible motive for him wanting to kill Dana.
With Dana's ex-husband in their crosshairs, detectives bring him down to the station for questioning.
As we talked to Steve about his relationship with Dana, he was found to be unusually locked up and reserved in his emotions, kind of a flat affect. He was not very expressive.
Then, detectives notice another suspicious detail.
It was noted that he had abrasions to his knees, and Dana had abrasions to her knees and elbows. We felt that the two of them might have scuffled together on the night that she was murdered. When we asked Steve about the abrasions to his knees, he said he got them playing baseball. But then one of the detectives that was there happens to be a real baseball fan, and he said it was his opinion that those abrasions were not consistent with injuries that you'd get playing baseball. At that point, Steve really moved up at the top of the list of suspects.
But did Steve have the opportunity to kill Dana?
When we asked Steve where he was on the night of the murder, he said he was at home 5 hours away from Puyallup. He said he put the kids in bed, went out and gassed up the vehicle, got up the next morning and drove to a local campsite.
His alibi is interesting. The fact that the triplets are conveniently out of the house for the murder, that could be a coincidence. It could also speak to planning and that the children couldn't be there for that particular day because he had plans for her.
The round trip from where Steve lived to where Dana lived is 10 hours. So we really looked at the possibility of Steve being able to put the kids in bed and drive to Puyallup, kill Dana, turn around and drive back, or have the kids in the car asleep, drive to Puyallup, kill Dana, and drive back.
If Steve did make the trip to Dana's house, investigators know he would have needed to stop for gas along the way.
We retraced the steps and the route that Steve would have taken, checked for possible places where Steve might have gassed up. We checked the surveillance cameras, any indicators along the roadway that would have picked up his car. There was no evidence to support the theory that Steve made that route.
Not finding any evidence connecting Steve to the crime, investigators rule him out as a suspect.
Now they eliminated all the suspects, and when they did that, the investigation kind of hit a brick wall. It was a source of frustration for them.
We had reached a point in the investigation where we didn't have a very good suspect, a very good plausible explanation as exactly how the homicide occurred. We were kind of at an impasse, and with the positioning of Dana, the way she was covered with the blankets afterwards, that's very unusual offender behavior. So I felt it was necessary for an FBI profile to be done on the case. So I contacted the FBI.
The local police department may not be able to say, hey, I've seen this behavior in the past. Hey, I've seen this indicator in the past for all the other homicides we had. The FBI brings that background, that experience, and that knowledge to help the police identify additional suspects.
After reviewing the case, the FBI offers up the theory that this crime wasn't planned, but happened in the heat of the moment.
They infer that this was a crime of passion, crime of rage, and very improvised. And it speaks to an offender who is more disorganized than organized and who is acting impulsively.
The FBI said that the person who came to Dana's house that night did not come to the house to kill her. And it's likely that whoever killed her was somebody who knew her, who was conversing with her, and then would have flown into a rage and attacked her.
The police looked at the estranged husband. They'd looked at the boyfriend. They'd looked at the stalker. Now the police had to figure out new suspects who weren't as obvious. Somebody did this. They just had to figure out who that was.
Armed with new information from the FBI, investigators expand their search in the brutal murder of Dana Laskowski.
So now we were looking for somebody who was prone to flying into a rage, had upper body strength, maybe somebody that Dana would have rebuffed in advance from.
Looking for new leads, detectives examine the video footage from Dana's funeral.
It was important to see who went to the funeral, but it was also important to see how people acted at the funeral.
From a psychological standpoint, you want to see A, who's in attendance, B, how they're responding. It's entirely possible that the killer is present. When you think about most people being killed by someone they know, odds are that those persons or people are going to be at the funeral because it would be socially unacceptable not to. And then how do they manage that situation? Is there something that could reveal themselves and their involvement to investigators?
As police look through the guest book, they make an unexpected discovery.
Loved ones wrote comments in there such as, you know, they miss Dana. They can't believe she's passed away. They miss her dearly, think about her often. Then there was an entry from a niece, and she said, I'm sorry I wasn't a better niece. I've been clean and sober 34 days now. It's all because of you. And some of the family members described the niece as unruly and wild. But the entry told us that the niece had gone clean and sober after Dana's death.
But even more importantly, she was doing it for Dana, which showed two things. One was her love for Dana, but it also showed that she felt guilt for some reason for her aunt's death. And that was important. It suggested that she may have been involved either shortly before or even during or after, somehow.
Detective Bramhall sets his sights on Dana's niece, Amanda.
I called Amanda, but I asked her to come in for an interview.
And Amanda, we're talking about the death of your Aunt Dana.
Yes.
I know this is hard for you.
Amanda tells the detective that she and her aunt were close, almost like mother and daughter. She adds that Dana was always there for her and her friends.
Amanda and her friends, they call themselves the Park Rats, which we on the police department are well familiar with. They're kids that hang out at Pioneer Park. And they're kids that don't have good homes. They don't have a stable home environment. And drug use is their common bond as they're hanging out in the park.
This whole group was like right out of high school. They didn't really have plans. I think high school was behind them. They didn't know what was ahead of them. You know, they weren't home doing their homework. They weren't helping little old ladies across the street. It's a nice town, but to the extent that there was a rough group, this was that group. Dana tried to be a safe place for Amanda and her friends. Amanda could go to Dana's place, no questions asked, any time of day or night, and she could bring her friends if she needed to. That was significant when the police remembered Dana's back door was unlocked that night.
Investigators ask Amanda what she knows about her aunt's murder and quickly get a lead.
So she gave me the list of names of the people that had been in the house, and she did kind of focus on one individual, Zane. She describes Zane as somebody with a lot of upper body strength and yet a temper. Zane is somebody who dealt in marijuana.
Then, Amanda makes an even more alarming statement.
Amanda went in to describe how Zane made an advance at her, and she rebuffed him, and that he bent her over the couch and was being physical.
He tried to come on to me, and I was like, you know, what are you doing? Get away from me. And he proceeded to act like he was, you know, pounding me from behind and like holding my head down, and I'm like, stop. I mean, screaming, you know, and he wouldn't stop. And then I remember, you know, he thought it was funny, and he was laughing, and he's has a lot of strength, and he could hold me down.
This was almost consistent with the murder as we understood it. I undertake a look at Zane, and I look in our files. He's got a criminal history, dealing in drugs, violence. So he was enough in the criminal element to be a very good suspect.
Detective Bramhall reaches out to one of his younger informants to see what he knows about Zane.
I had a sit down with him, and I talked to him about the murder of Amanda's aunt. And I suggested to him that Zane would be a good likely suspect. And he looked at me and he said, Zane didn't kill Amanda's aunt. Emily killed Amanda's aunt. Everybody knows that.
One of the people in Amanda's group was a young woman named Emily. Emily is 17. She's living on the streets or close to it. She's using drugs. Amanda and Emily were very close, maybe best friends.
Detective Bramhall is familiar with Emily from her troubles with the law in her past.
I said to this person, are you telling me that Emily, this little 5'2" girl, strangled a 36-year-old mother of 3? And he said, your records are old. Emily is not a skinny little 5'2" girl. She is very muscular. She has a picture of her biceps hanging from a rearview mirror. We call her mutant because she likes to wrestle and fight with the guys.
But you can imagine the police were a little bit hesitant to believe that that was the case, really. Because again, somebody had overpowered Dana fighting for her life. Emily's not a normal suspect.
Detective Bramhall digs into the story that Emily could be Dana's killer.
As they started to interview these park rats, one of the things that started to come out was that maybe the toughest of all of them was Emily. And that Emily would win arm wrestling and even regular wrestling, and that she had this strength that other people were really surprised by, even the boys.
Detectives bring Emily down to the station for questioning.
She's wearing a very short blouse, and it exposes her waist. And I'm thinking about the position that we found Dana Laskowski in, and it would have taken torso strength. And I can see the muscles along the side of Emily's spine and the small of her back. She's very muscular. And I'm now more convinced that she could be the offender.
Detective Bramhall confronts Emily with reports of her involvement in Dana's murder.
She puts her hands on the table, she puts her head back, and her eyes go side to side. And then she comes forward very angrily and she says, those people are lying. And I said, oh, really, Emily? All those people are lying.
You're seriously driving me insane. I didn't murder Dana Laskowski or whatever. No, there's no way it was me.
There's no way?
No.
And at that point, I was very persuaded that this is the murderer.
Police drill down on Emily, asking where she was when Dana was killed.
Emily and Amanda had told us that they were at a party at the time that Dana was murdered.
I was completely high out of my brain. And I was with Amanda like the whole time.
I found out that Emily and Amanda left the party at the same time another individual left the party. The other individual drove a given distance and made a purchase. And we got that receipt, so we had the time that Emily and Amanda had left the party around midnight. It was possible they made it to Dana's house before 1 a.m.
So they have information that they're concealing. They're likely involved in the crime. So what happened here? Could Emily be the killer?
With the circumstantial evidence stacking up against Emily in the Dana Laskowski murder case, police are granted a search warrant for the room she's renting.
One of the things that they found in Emily's room was a diary or a journal. And it had some of the typical stuff you'd expect from a 17-year-old girl, but it had a couple of things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. One was the bucket list. And one of the things on the list was to kill somebody and get away with it.
Then, police uncover another crucial piece of evidence.
There was an entry where she was angry at Amanda and wrote in there that she felt like strangling Amanda the way she'd strangled her aunt.
This shocking finding confirms Emily's guilt.
Emily's diaries talk about committing the homicide, strangling Dana, wanting to possibly strangle her niece Amanda in a similar way. And in my mind, that speaks to somebody who wants to dominate people, somebody who's getting self-esteem and power from committing such offenses, or even just knowing that should she want to, she's capable of doing it.
I confronted her with the entry in the diary, and I said, look, I could strangle her, referring to Amanda, just like her aunt. She says, well, it doesn't say I could strangle her just like I strangled her aunt.
Now, Dana, we found strangled to death in her house. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thing is, we hadn't disclosed strangulation as the cause of death. So she was booked, held for $500,000 bail, and I could begin the investigation of Emily as the offender, the murderer of Dana Laskowski.
Detective Bramhall questions Amanda again, this time confronting her about the lies she's been telling about the night of Dana's murder.
And I said, what happened? And Amanda said, I don't know, I wasn't there. Why was Amanda misleading us?
I'm curious as to why you didn't tell me when we first met.
Scared of her. I was afraid that I would get hurt too.
You said you cared so much about your Auntie Dana, but you led us on a wild goose chase. I list all the points where she has lied.
It doesn't take long before Amanda cracks under the pressure, telling detectives everything she knows.
Before we even got there, Emily had said, oh, I want some money, we need money, and I had agreed. So we walked in the living room, Dana was up and awake. And she was surprised to see us, and, you know, and was like, Amy, Dana, we need money. And she had said that she didn't have any cash on her, and, you know, I was really fine with that, but Emily, you know, come on, Dana, just anything. We really need help, you know. We knew that she had some change and some dollars in a cabinet, and Dana was getting really irritated because she were high, and I'm sure we were jittery, and Emily started getting really upset and being really rude to Dana, so Dana wanted us to leave. And she kind of, you know, put her hand on Emily to, you know, push her out, and Emily didn't like that, and she wasn't having it, and she kept pushing Dana. And I kind of, you know, walked back a little bit because I didn't want to get involved, and I was yelling at him to stop. And then all I heard was, you know, gagging noises and gagging noises, and I saw Emily on top of her.
Then Amanda says, Emily strangled my aunt right in front of my eyes. Sorry I didn't tell you earlier.
The fact that Amanda watches Emily murder her aunt and does nothing, I think either speaks to the fact that she too was afraid of Emily, or this happened so quickly that she probably didn't even realize what she was witnessing, and that's not uncommon.
With Amanda's cooperation, investigators are now able to fill in the final 24 hours of Dana's life.
That night, Emily and Amanda had left the party around midnight. Then they made it to Dana's house before 1 a.m. They came in the back door. They were on drugs. Dana was on the couch in the living room. They went in to try to get some money. Dana said, I'm not going to give you any money. And Emily said, I want some money. And then there was a point where Dana said, enough, you girls are going to have to leave. And Dana stood up and she touched Emily, and Emily exploded. And then Emily attacked her and strangled Dana Laskowski.
Amanda watched Emily attack Dana, and Amanda yelled at her to stop, but it was too late.
It was over. The scream that the neighbor reported hearing at 1 o'clock on the night that Dana was murdered turned out not to be Dana's scream, but rather Amanda's scream.
Emily then positions Dana's body on the couch under blankets.
They grabbed a few dollars that Dana had around and got out of there.
On the way out, Emily stops and takes some of Dana's clothing.
Emily attended the funeral of Dana. She wore these clothes to the funeral. This was her display of power and dominance. I wore these clothes because I can. Look at what I did. I may describe her best as somebody who's a fledgling psychopath. She was young. Typically, psychopaths are adults. It takes several years for behavior to develop. We clearly see there's a pattern here of conduct disorder, and then there's a murder.
The one unanswered question plaguing investigators is motive.
Emily told her friends, well, Amanda kept ditching me for her aunt, and Emily specifically said she was not sorry she killed Dana.
Perhaps Emily wanted to kill Dana to have Amanda all to herself. Amanda, she was reportedly close to Dana. It's entirely possible that she killed Dana as a message to Amanda. Amanda was present when this occurred. So what message is that sending to Amanda? I've done this and now I can do this to you?
Despite her role in Dana's murder, Amanda is given a plea deal and sees no prison time.
We had a lot of discussion about what we're going to do with Amanda. We certainly had her for robbery, but I felt that we needed her as a witness because she witnessed the murder. And if we charged her with a crime, she'd have the right to remain silent. So we decided that we were going to treat her as a witness.
With Amanda's testimony, Emily is charged with the murder of Dana Laskowski, but her case never goes in front of a jury.
Emily pled a Newton plea wherein she does not admit guilt. She just admits if she were to go to trial, there would be enough evidence to convict her. Emily was convicted for manslaughter in the first degree. She received a sentence of about 7 years.
After serving just 5.5 years in prison, Emily is released in 2008. She moves back to Puyallup, gets married, and has children.
The fact that Emily is out there walking around right now is concerning. These are not compulsions that just go dormant. She's already killed once. She had no regrets. She wore the victim's clothing to the funeral, much the way serial killers carry around souvenirs and trophies taken from their crimes to relive it. She should be under continued observation by police.
This case was a genuine whodunit. Most of the murders we go to, we know exactly what happened even before we get there. This one, we didn't understand going into it, but we were able to get on the right path to get this solved. And I'm glad to bring it to light. It was my job to do it, and I did my job.
This case was complicated because there was a lot of emotion and there was a lot of personal connections with everyone involved, and this was a terrible tragedy. A woman, a mother, an aunt who shouldn't have died that night. And then a 17-year-old girl who killed her, who shouldn't have killed her that night. And no matter what the justice system does, it doesn't bring Dana back.
Everybody loved Dana, and she is out of the life of her father, of her mother, and her kids are triplets. They were 8 years old at the time, and they grew up without her. So this is not justice, but in murder, nobody good wins.